Have you wanted to use your home equity to pay off debt or improve your house, but found the old way too painful? There's now a new, better option for accessing your home equity. It's called HomePace. Here's the key. It's not a loan, so there's no monthly payments or interest. Instead, HomePace gives you money up front as an investment in your home. That's right, you get money that you can use however you want without the burden of monthly payments. Then someday when you decide to sell, you share a portion of the gains or losses in your home's value with HomePace. That means if your home's value drops, HomePace takes a loss too. HomePace gives homeowners a better choice to access home equity. No monthly payments, no interest. To get an instant quote, go to homepace.com/quote. It takes less than 5 minutes. That's homepace/quote to get started.
Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey guys, this is Matt Seidel, and you're listening to Keeping It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jim Donovan here with the young boy, Josh Smith, and Karen Peterson from Post Wrestling. On today's show, we'll preview Capital Collision and Best of the Super Juniors 29 and cover all its news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, Karen, how you guys doing?
Life is good. Glad to be back. We were talking off air before we got started. I was like, I wasn't expecting this call for another 6 months because Super Juniors used to be in the fall, but it's back to the most wonderful time of the year where it belongs in the spring, and I'm happy.
Young boy,
I'm doing good. 6 stars from the get-go,
boy. But yes, it's best of the Super Junior season. It feels like old times. We got 2 blocks. We're in springtime, like you mentioned, Karen. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And we also have a show here in America, in Washington, D.C., Capital Collision. So we'll get started with talking about that show, and then we'll move into Best of the Super Juniors. So first thing here, New Japan Pro Wrestling will be presenting Capital Collision this Saturday, May 14th, in English, exclusively on Fight TV. But New Japan has put out a little message about the broadcast this Saturday. So they say NJPW sets the highest of broadcast standards and is very aware that Windy City Riot, through no fault of Fight, fell short of those standards. We deeply appreciate fans showing their passion for NJPW events. As a mark of that appreciation, every viewer of Windy City Riot on Fight who purchases Capital Collision will receive 5 fight credits applied automatically at checkout. For Capital Collision, significant improvements and restructuring to our production pipeline will ensure the best possible quality viewing experience that our fans expect and deserve. Refunds will be made available with no questions asked for any technical issues encountered. For Windy City Riot purchasers, order Capital Collision on Fight and you'll automatically earn 5 fight credits towards your next fight pay-per-view purchase. This is not a general market offer. This special offer is only available to those who ordered Windy City Riot on the Fight platform. No forms to fill out, nothing to redeem. If you are a Windy City Riot buyer on Fight, simply purchase Capital Collision on Fight at its regular price, and you will automatically get a deposit of the credits in your Fight account 1 week after the pay-per-view event is over. These credits can be saved up in your Fight account and used toward buying a future pay-per-view event at the credit levels you've earned. So, Josh, Karen, how are we feeling about this statement here about Fight TV for Saturday?
Well, as somebody who was at Windy City Riot and saw some of the issues that would eventually translate to film, I think it's actually a smart move on New Japan's part to try to reestablish that confidence in the brand, especially in the partnership with Fight. It kind of bums me out because I was there in person and we had our own problems, but it's good. It's a positive step to, taking responsibility and accountability for what happened.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. Because which I have in the past, I didn't for this last show. You did, Jeremy. You got a refund. But if I've purchased, let's say Windy City Riot specifically, and I ran into issues, I'm going to be real hesitant to put money down to, pay for another one of these, pay-per-view / premium live events from New Japan. And, if they're kind of telling me like, hey, if you buy this, not only are we revamping the production, not only are we working to make sure everything's streamlined, but you're also going to get a $5 credit, which is like, that's not much, but it's something. Plus, if you run into any technical issues, you get your money back, no questions asked. So, what is the risk at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you put the money down, they fuck up, you get your money back. You probably got a credit. You know what I mean?
My only thing is that I wish they would have done the same thing 3 years ago when Royal Quest happened, because that show had a lot of problems, and trying to get customer service from Fight to sort them out at the time, they're basically like, well, if you want to cancel it, you're going to cut your programming off right midway through the show. And I'm like, well, that's not good. So this is a more hospitable approach, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, because I remember, we had issues with Royal Quest also, and I remember like trying to ask for the refund, and be like, we'll cut your fee though if you get the refund. I'm like, well, what sense does that make?
I kind of want to watch the main event, thanks.
The funny thing with that too is like, I think that initial Royal Quest sticks out in a lot of people's minds because that was probably the first time that a lot of people actually spent money, in large droves on Fight for New Japan. And since then, they've done way worse shows. Every single North American show that they've done post-pandemic that's been on Fight has been way worse than Royal Quest. But so many people always bring up Royal Quest because that was the initial taste that was left in people's mouths, was like not a positive one.
That was our initial trauma as a group.
Yeah, and I can't imagine if, the first thing you bought was Battle in the Valley or Windy City Riot, like how fucked you probably felt. You know what I mean?
Right.
Lone Star Shootout wasn't that bad, though.
Oh, it was bad.
I said it wasn't that bad.
I was live for Lone Star Shootout, so I never went back and watched it, so I don't know how.
Oh, did you say Lone Star Shootout wasn't that bad?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you said Battle in the Valley. My mistake.
Oh, no. Battle in the Valley was bad.
I was like, that was really bad. Lone Star Shootout had minimal issues, but even that was,
It had its problems.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect.
Man, well, seems like they hopefully have the issues fixed here. And, if there are issues, like I said, you can get a refund. But, It should be a pretty good show based on the card they have here. So we'll go through this card, give our thoughts and predictions on all the matchups here.
Before we do that, I want to say one quick disclaimer. I won't bring it up again. Still completely opposed to this pay-per-view model that they're adopting. I don't think it's going to pan out for them long term, and I don't think it's the wise or prudent business decision for them. Still, just want to put that out there.
Can I build on that?
Sure.
It's still better than the model that Stardom has, because at least with Fight, you get to keep your access to the pay-per-view.
Sure.
Stardom, you have it's like a 3-day limited engagement, and then it disappears, and you have to wait until they put it on Stardom World, so you don't retain a copy of it permanently like you do with Fight. So that's the one thing New Japan has working for them compared to how Stardom conducts their business.
And they've been spamming pay-per-views from what I understand as well on the Stardom side of things.
Yeah, and they're making heaps of money.
Yeah.
But it's just like it went from like one a month to like back double day shows or twice a month, 3 times a month. So
Hat Man's bringing that money in.
Sure is.
All right, let's take a look at this Capital Collision card here. Like we said, Washington, D.C. this Saturday, May 14th. First matchup we're going to talk about is Renarita versus the Alpha Wolf, Carl Fredericks. Don't think there's really any storyline here. I'll see both guys representing the LA Dojo. I think it's just going to be a fun opener between two LA Dojo guys.
Is this their first time wrestling one-on-one? I'm looking on Cage Match. I can't recall.
I think I saw Fredericks mention on Instagram that he's lost to Narita twice, which seemed weird to me, but
I think I do remember. I think, didn't he wrestle Fredericks at the taping after Resurgence? In
LA Dojo Showcase number 2, they wrestled each other in a one-on-one match, and it was good too. I recall.
Oh yeah, they don't have a bad match. I just find it surprising that Narita would have the upper hand on Fredericks after all this time.
Narita did beat him, and that was during that initial strong push of Narita when they brought him onto the Strong brand. So I think that's part of it. But I don't know if he's beaten him in. They've had a few tag matches.
They have a lot of multi-mans, but they've also both been having their own singles runs in Strong, which has been great for both of them, honestly.
Yeah, I do remember being surprised that Narita won Fredericks. Like you said, Josh, I think that's when he initially came in, and he was just picking up these big wins left and right. So, yeah, kind of surprising Narita kind of having the advantage over Fredericks here, a guy who's also, graduated, has gotten rid of the black trunks. He's, rocking the red and the tassels, and he's also in a feud right now with QT Marshall and the Factory over at AEW. So obviously Fredericks, was the leader, captain of the LA Dojo when they're all in the, training system together. So I'm sure Fredericks is going to be gunning for a big win here.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't have much more to add to that. I mean, the only way I could see them really forwarding the storyline is Narita turns on the LA Dojo. He joins the Factory. He usurps QT. We see him leading the group on Wednesday nights and Fridays.
How dare you? Shibata would chop the soul straight out of the back of that man's body with one shot.
Narita starts riding Komarovo's shoulders into the ring like he's Prince Devitt.
Prince Narita. Oh, man, yeah, I think I'm going to go with Fredericks here to get the win.
That's fine. I mean, I'm just going to say it. Like, they don't give a fuck about Fredericks. He loses all the time. I'm riding with my boy Narita, okay?
I'm a big match Ren girl, so I can't go against that.
All right, we'll see. I guess 2-1 here. So moving on to the next matchup here, we have a multi-man matchup. David Finlay, Fred Rosser, Rocky Romero, Tangaloa, and Yuya Uemura will be taking on the Team Filthy team of Dane Limelight, Jarrell Nelson, JR Kratos, Royce Isaac, and Filthy Tom Lawler.
Yeah, the one interesting thing there, we addressed the allegations with Chris Dickinson last week during the Cold Open. He's been removed from this match and was replaced with Tangaloa. But the main overarching story here is still going to be Tom Lawler and his ongoing feud with Fred Rosser. Fred Rosser is, still trying to get Tom Lawler to face him in a match for the title. They did announce at the last aired Strong episode that if he were to be able to defeat the West Coast Wrecking Crew in I believe, a handicap match.
Yes.
He gets the title shot.
Yeah, handicap match this Friday. The first episode of the Mutiny Tour will be airing on New Japan World.
So, I mean, I'm going to assume, without having been spoiled, it's a safe bet that he's going to win that match. And, this will probably be a de facto preview for the upcoming strong title match between those two. I'm just on, guessing. I got a strong hunch on it,
You got a New Japan strong hunch on it?
Yeah.
The one thing I'm surprised about is that I just realized that Alex Coughlin isn't on this card, is he?
No, he's not.
Because usually
he's busy.
Well, I figured he's busy. I just don't know where he got spirited away to. I know, because Connors is not going to be there for Super Juniors or whatever, but
he's got a date.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know.
You're the worst.
I know he's been doing some Rev Pro stuff. Maybe he's going to be in the UK, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. I was like, doesn't he still have his thing with Kratos where they're still trying to destroy each other? But
yes,
right. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, if there was a place you'd put him, on this card, probably across from Kratos. He's not there. Maybe we look out for another post-match Kratos Coughlin interaction, possibly.
Yeah, angle alert. Yeah,
works for me. I always enjoy a nice run-in.
Yeah, this should be a fun match. Team Filthy, those guys always end up in 10-man tags on these shows, and they're always super fun, super entertaining. Like you said, Josh, is probably going to be obviously the big focus on Fred and Tom, and assuming Fred's probably going to pick up the win here, probably on Day in Limelight to build the next title match between Rosser and Filthy Tom. Also, Rocky Romero has had the feud with Black Tiger, even though Black Tiger is not in this match, but still affiliated with Team Filthy. So he'll be looking to get some revenge on these guys as well.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know if they had Lawler defend at Mutiny, or do you think they're saving it for Forbidden Door next month?
From what I remember, I don't think he defended on the Mutiny Tour.
Okay. And he's probably he's not defending it, the Collision tapings afterwards up in Philly, right?
As of right now,
I would have assumed he was going to. That was my assumption.
Okay.
But maybe he is defending at Forbidden Door. I hadn't even thought of that possibility.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the whole conversation. I was just looking, I'm like, he's still champion. Why is he so low on the card?
Right.
No, that's interesting though.
As of right now, Filthy Tom does not have a match for the Collision Tour the next day in Philadelphia.
All right, thank you.
They also might be holding off on announcing it until after this week's episode airs. That's very New Japan,
Yeah.
Right.
That would make sense.
Because, if Rosser wins, then maybe they go, by the way, we're also going to do a title match tomorrow, Rosser and Lawler.
Or they'll just cut him off again and throw 10s on in a match against Tom Lawler.
Nakanishi makes his return.
Watto is coming soon, guys.
Oh, man. So the next matchup, we got a special singles match here with one half of the IWGP World Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, the Crown Jewel. Chase Owens will be taking on one half of the former champions, the Great O-Khan. All hail.
All hail.
Yeah, so, man, the juxtaposition between these two guys.
Oh, man.
If you know, you know. Yeah, so this will probably be good, though, right? Got two good workers in there. I guess it's good that they've got some, sort of like a preview special singles match for, an ongoing feud within New Japan proper here in the stateside. So that's cool.
Yeah, it should be a fun matchup. I mean, we've seen, based off when you see Riot, Great O-Khan's getting over big here in the United States. And so it should be an interesting crowd reaction here. And it should be a fun matchup. Both very good workers here, good tacticians. And I would expect Great O-Khan to get the win here.
Same.
You know what's funny? O-Khan is getting over because he did a good deed and helped somebody. But, remember when Chris Masters, saved people from, a burning building? Nobody gave a fuck. It didn't do anything for his career.
Man.
I don't know. I was just reminded of that.
Tough times for the masterpiece. Moving on to the next matchup here, we have the Mighty Don't Kneel reuniting for the first time in a long time. Jonah, Mad Mikey Nichols, and Shane Hayes teaming up with Bad Dude Tito. They'll be taking on the United Empire team of Aaron Henare, Jeff Cobb, and Kyle Fletcher and Mark Davis, Aussie Open.
As a longtime TMDK fan, my heart grew like 20 times when they put Mikey back on this tour. Because, he's been in Australia for the last 3 years on his farm with his wife and his daughter and their pony and just like having a good time out in West Australia, doing a little bit of wrestling. But, once Shane and Jonah were free agents, I was like, oh gosh, I can't wait for the day that they bring Mikey back. And they finally did it. So as much as the United Empire is growing on me, I'm hoping for a TMDK win only because I need an ultimate handshake between Shane and Mikey because they haven't done one since they left NXT.
Remember when we used to get all those questions about the mole in Chaos?
Yeah.
Okay, we always assumed that mole was working for Bullet Club. I've now come to the conclusion that it was Mad Mikey Nichols, and he was all along working for TMDK. All right, he was the mole in Chaos. Also, I'm not gonna like.
I'm not saying it was Rocky Romero, but
I'm not going to acknowledge his official alignment with that group until Okada gives a ruling as to his status within the Chaos faction. Okay.
I mean, if they can lump a whole bunch of people that are on AEW into Chaos, Jonah and Shane Hayes and even Bad Dude Tito can be considered that they are part of Chaos now too.
I posited this theory in the past as well, and I think it makes sense from.
But Okada doesn't seem to care about anyone but Okada, but that's a different story.
Hey, that's his prerogative. He's the best.
Shinsuke didn't leave Chaos to him to become what it is now. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until the Wikipedia page is updated to figure out whether these guys are part of Chaos or not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting though to see sort of a reunified TMDK working together. They've never worked together in New Japan aside from a couple those Australia shots, but I don't even think they were working multi-mans back then.
I think back then Shane and Mikey were still in NXT at the time.
Yeah, but they had Slex and
the extended TMDK.
Who's the guy that plays cards in NXT now? He's part of it too.
Duke Hudson.
Isn't he? Elliot Sexton.
Yeah, Elliot Sexton.
Yeah. So I mean, some of those dudes were there, but it's gonna be interesting because United Empire. I think right now they gel in these multi-man matches.
Oh, they're so good.
I kind of have a hot take. We used to say a lot on this show that LIJ were sort of like, when it came to multi-man matches, like the most cohesive and kind of superlative 8-man and 10-man tag group. I kind of think Team Filthy and United Empire are both passing them at the current time. I'm not saying that it's always going to be that way, but I'd rather watch a Team Filthy or United Empire multi-man match than an LIJ match in 2022, honestly.
It's not a bad shout. I don't disagree with it because we've seen these groups in particular, especially very often here in the States, that they're evolving and they're evolving quickly. And the thing is that a lot of the United Empire guys, they have interaction with each other from when they were on the indies together, especially in the UK.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's like some magical innate ability because they have that history together. So they just came together and it works great. But yeah, I think it also helps that they're all a bit younger and a bit faster and they don't have tired Naito knees and, people who are falling apart and on the injured list.
They don't have a double vision.
They don't have double vision. They don't have broken eye sockets. They're not selling like fried chicken. I don't know.
There's a lot of cool things here though. I mean, both groups sort of have their own pin eater. You got Bad Dude Tito, you got Aaron Henare, but both of those guys are bruisers and can go. Seeing Jonah and Jeff Cobb across from each other is going to be really awesome. Then, the proper tag team of TMDK taking on Aussie Open I don't know how often they've worked together because I'm not that knowledgeable, but I have to imagine they have some history, maybe not, but those are two teams that could really reinvigorate the tag team division.
I don't think they have had much interaction because like when Kyle first got established in the UK with Mark Davis, he was 19 years old. He's still in his like mid 20s, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy how young
So
Kyle Fletcher
he's
is.
like really young. So I think by the time that they were getting started, Shane and Mikey were already in Noah and or getting ready to go to NXT at that point.
Yeah.
So they may not have even cross paths, but oh man.
Yeah.
Y'all want a big boy fight? That 8-man is a big boy fight.
Yeah, this isn't your standard run of the mill 8-man preview tag. Like these are 8 guys that really have something to prove and are going to show out. What were you going to say, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, these guys they're probably going to get like 10 to 15 minutes, but they're probably going to go balls to the wall. They're going to be doing big spots, high pace, and they're going to be working really hard here to capture some attention here. Aussie Open, we've sung their praises enough and how great those guys are, just how innovative and creative they are. This should be a really fun matchup. I'm not sure quite what the storyline elements are. I believe on the Mutiny Tour there might have been some Empire versus TMDK. I know there might be some coming up on Collision as well. So clearly kind of next faction versus faction feud here, but it should be a really fun matchup. Like you pointed out, Josh, Badu Tito. If TMDK loses, he'll probably eat the pin on that side. And then Aaron Henare, like you mentioned, Josh, on the Empire side could potentially eat the pin. But I'm feeling this is potentially going to be, I think United Empire is going to get the win here just because there's going to be a heavy focus with the Empire on the next day's Collision tapings. They all have big matches the next night in Philadelphia for those tapings. And they're the more solid unit here. First time TMDK is back in a while. They're also teaming up with Badu Tito, who officially is not a part of TMDK right now.
Might as well be.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Plus, isn't there also a United Empire special version of Strong coming up as well?
Right.
After Collision?
That's what he was referencing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Those matches will be taped on the Collision show.
Okay. So they're just, okay.
Yeah. So then moving on to the next matchup here, another special singles match. The Mad King, Eddie Kingston, taking on the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii.
So I want to address the elephant in the room. I'm very excited for this match. I think it's going to be awesome. Big fans of both these guys. But I just want to make it very clear. This match is not King's Road versus Strong Style. Okay, in order for it to be King's Road, you have to have wrestled someone that was on the King's Road, trained with someone that was on the King's Road, maybe even been to Japan before. I don't know. Listen, you can be the biggest fan of those guys and emulate them all you want and love them and be influenced by them. But at the end of the day, who the fuck did Eddie Kingston ever wrestle from that was part of All Japan or Noah or train with?
So, Josh, are you calling Eddie Kingston a liar?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying right now?
Yeah, I'm saying he's a liar.
Man, you just ruined a promo that gave absolute chills to just about everybody in the building in Chicago.
I don't care.
I get it. But I was just like when he gave that promo, everyone was just like, oh, that's good. But now you just this is my bubble. It just went boop. You just burst it.
That. I was like, you didn't wrestle with Tenru, you didn't wrestle with Onita, you didn't wrestle with Baba, you didn't wrestle with Jumbo. Who the fuck you be wrestling with? Mizawa, Taue? Who? Name me someone. Jun Akiyama? Who were you trained by, dude? Like he went to Japan for one tour with Chikara in like 2011 for like 3 days. This man is not King's Road. And you know why I'm fine with ruining that incredible promo? Because he does that weekly. Every week he gives a promo that I literally get like chills and stuff. So it's fine. He's got thousands of them. It's not a big deal. But like the match is going to rule. But I just don't want to pretend like this is All Japan versus New Japan. This is, Fujinami versus Tenru. It's not. It's okay for it to be Kingston versus Ishii and that be the allure of it,
That being said, who you got? Who's your pick, young boy?
I'm gonna go with Kingston. You know why?
After all that?
Yeah. Yeah, because number one, Tony Khan does not lose, and he's not going to let his guys lose to guys from New Japan. So the very fact that this is happening. Number two, even if that wasn't even a factor, New Japan still might have Ishii lose because they don't give a fuck. Like they think he's Teflon and bulletproof, and they let him lose all the time. So there's a lot going against Ishii in this match. If he wins, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, honestly, I would be shocked too if Ishii won. He just coming off a loss against Josh Alexander for the Impact World title. And it seems like, Eddie Kingston is campaigning to be in the G1 this summer. So, getting a win here over Ishii could be his ticket into the G1.
I would love that. He's a great guy that could be in the G1. You know why? Because he could eat the losses and he'd be fine. He's one of the few guys that would can his body hold up to that schedule? I don't know, man.
I don't know, but I think as far as you meant booking wise, he a guy who can go 4-5, 5-4 in the G1. Also, I don't think he'd be missing too much from TV. I mean, they have so many stars in AEW right now. I don't think missing Eddie Kingston for a month would hurt their TV a lot, and he'd be back in time to potentially set something up for All Out in September. So I think Kingston would be a great guy when you're looking at the AEW roster on who can they send over for a month for the G1. And so I can totally see him getting the win here, cutting a promo, saying, I'm planning on being in the G1.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Karen, who you got? You back in Kingston too, or you going with Pitbull here?
Well, you see, you mentioned Ishii losing to Josh Alexander, but then he also lost to Tanahashi the week before. So it's like I want a win, a W in the column for him. So
he beat Steve Macklin on Impact last week.
Yeah, he beat Steve Macklin. It's on New Japan World. You can go watch it.
Like I said, he lost to Josh Alexander and Hiroshi Tanahashi in the last 2 weeks.
Oh man.
I'm not gonna turn my back on the Stone Pupper. I'm gonna back Ishii on this one.
Oh, I'm gonna be backing him. I'm gonna be just in the same way I was backing him.
You just don't think he's gonna win.
I just don't think he's gonna. I wanted him to beat Tanahashi. I was living and breathing with everything he did in that match.
Josh was campaigning hard
such a good match
for him to beat Tanahashi, sending out pictures, changing his nickname in the group chat. Josh was all behind Ishii here to beat Tana.
Oh, yeah. I should probably change my nickname. It's probably dated now. I don't even remember what I changed it to.
Oh, man.
But yeah.
So moving on.
This might be match of the night, though.
It could be, yeah.
I don't know. The next match might be match of the night.
Hey, you know what we will find out now. Granted, I'm not at all saying that Eddie Kingston isn't a tough guy. I mean, if you followed his career and you see the type of physical brawls and wars he's had, he's definitely a tough man. But there's tough, and then there's Tomohiro Ishii tough, and you can tell who really is about that life versus what type of match he chooses to have. If he chooses to have a moose match with him, then that will tell us one thing. If they go out there and they have a fucking never style war, then we know Eddie Kingston's about that life. You know what I mean?
So you're saying this is a real man match for Eddie Kingston?
It could be, or it could be maybe you're not such a real man match. Why aren't you having a real man match with Tomohiro Ishii, the one guy you should be having that match with?
Yeah. Well, based off the Gabe Kidd match at the beginning of this year, I think he's
that match. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. That match slapped so hard.
Literally. Oh, man. So moving on to the next matchup here, we have the King, Minoru Suzuki, taking on House of Black's Brody King.
It's King versus King.
Yeah.
It'll be great. It's one of those things where just I want both of them to win. But the thing about Suzuki is that he's also, hello, little pupper in a shirt. Sorry, I got distracted.
We don't usually address the fact that there's a dog with me.
Sorry. You know better than to bring a cute animal into any conversation with me. I get distracted very easy. So Suzuki, I think, it could go either way. I really want Brody King to get a win, but I don't bet against, the king of pro wrestling himself, Minoru Suzuki.
I'm going to take Minoru Suzuki for this one reason alone. Brody King doesn't seem to be that high up in the pecking order when it comes to AEW. And Minoru Suzuki is a guy that AEW's gotten, some dates out of and some business. I know it sounds so backwards to be like basing everything off of what they think, but from a political standpoint here in the States, I think they do have upper hand in these types of decisions, even just lending their talent out. So I'm going to guess if I'm Tony Khan, I'm probably going to have Brody King lose the match. He gets the quote unquote rub from even just being in the ring with Suzuki. And then, Suzuki looks strong. That's probably the make good for having Kingston win earlier in the night. I'm going to probably go with Suzuki here, honestly.
Yeah, I'm also leaning Suzuki as well. I feel like Brody King loves Suzuki so much, he'd probably be like begging to do the job here.
Yeah.
And we've seen Brody King against guys like Ishii in the past. He lost to Ishii. And so, like you mentioned, I think he's kind of that, that upper mid-card level, but he can still lose to a lot of the main New Japan roster guys. And also, he's kind of haven't been pushed out heavily and strong since he's been in AEW. And so, yeah, I think he's a guy here who can eat a fall, have a really great match here with Suzuki. And who knows, maybe an angle happens. Maybe the House of Black comes and attacks Suzuki, and we get Suzuki again versus House of Black at Forbidden Door. Who knows?
I hope not.
Are you holding out for House of Black versus House of Torture at Forbidden Door, Josh?
I don't really want to see either of those two groups do anything in any respect ever anywhere.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I'm all for House of Black wrestling. I don't care for their spooky promos and trying to make a cheerleader turn evil or whatever.
You can't get one without the other. You just have to understand that if you're going to watch them wrestle, you're going to get some spooky bullshit that sucks. And so I'm like, do I like them? Yeah. Do I like them that much? No, I'm not, Black Mist and, calling on Beelzebub and the lights go out, blah, blah, blah,
See, I was going to say that Brody King would be a person I would see who would be possibly given a berth at the G1, only because same principle, he could eat a lot of losses, but also still have the stamina to have a lot of great matches.
Right, and we do know there's reports when Brody King was in Japan during that Super Juniors tour that Gato and the office was very impressed with Brody King. He was supposed to come in for the World Tag League in 2019, but PCO got injured and they weren't able to make it over for that tournament. So New Japan's always been high on Brody King. Also, he's been one of the guys who's been featured heavily on Strong during the pandemic, and even being a part of AEW, still featured on these Strong tapings and these big New Japan pay-per-view events. So yeah, definitely, even if he loses here, he can definitely be in consideration for being over in the G1. And again, with House of Black having more members now, Brody wouldn't be missed too much for a month. You can do stuff with Malachi and Buddy Matthews while Brody's away. But I'm still leaning towards Suzuki getting the win here.
Well, I know it's a little early for this kind of talk, but the latest or last example of what you guys are talking about, where an outside company allows their talent to come into the G1 would be the Noah run. And what did we see there? We had Marufuji, someone that was super protected, went, almost to the finals, was in a block final and, beat the IWGP champion in that tournament. And then they paired him up with Nakajima, like a future ace, but someone who could like eat the losses in the other block. I wouldn't be surprised if they did do something like that, where they have one really established star that's going to get pushed heavily, and then one guy like a Brody King who could benefit from being in it, but like won't necessarily like run the gamut. You know what I mean?
You say this, but just don't be surprised when Shima's in the G1 and he's the one that's getting the push, just like he did in the New Japan Cup.
No, that could easily happen. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I mean, I'm all down for Shima being in the G1.
I'm not.
The Shima one?
I mean, it'd be cool, but like, I don't know.
I'll take Shima over Yujiro. What was that?
He didn't light the world on fire during the New Japan Cup or anything. I mean,
he had some fun matches, and I would take him over Yujiro.
Yeah, but that was New Japan Cup. This is G1. You think he's going to turn up for the G1? I don't know, man. He's kind of old.
Old's on top, man.
Give me T-Hawk. You put T-Hawk in the G1.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
We did have that T-Hawk Okada, showdown a few months ago. So I'll be down for that. So moving on now to the semi-main event of Capital Collision. We have the Chaos team of Kazuchika Okada and Trent Beretta taking on the Bullet Club team of the Young Gun Hikuleo and the Switchblade Jay White.
Good friends, better enemies. Basically Diesel and Sean.
Who's Diesel and who's Sean?
Well, Hikuleo's obviously Diesel, and Jay White's Shawn Michaels.
So who's Okada and Beretta in this situation?
They're the Mega Powers.
So
Hogan and Savage. The two strongest forces coming together.
I know that people are probably going to lean towards Trent Beretta eating the pin in this one, but I really feel like Hikuleo might be the one who gets pinned by Okada. Yeah. You don't bring Okada all the way here just to have him be in a match where he loses, I don't think.
You could if what you're trying to do is reestablish Jay White. I listened to I watched the press conference that they did last week for the upcoming Super Juniors, and then they did a small deal with Okada. And I mean, he was kind of burying Jay and being like, yeah, he's been wrestling over in the US, but I don't follow it. And he's like, it doesn't, if you're not over here in Japan, like, what are you really doing? So that sentiment might echo how other people feel about Jay White right now. They might need to really establish him in a strong way. Although I could see a scenario where you're right, where Hikuleo loses due to Jay White, and Jay White still comes out looking strong in the end because he's not taking the pinfall anyways, and he probably, ends up standing tall at the very end anyways, either way.
And also there's a rogue Tama Tonga who's back here in the States, so there's always room for that because he's not on this card, but his brother is. Brothers are, both of them.
Right.
That's true too.
And they still need to handle Hikuleo choosing Bullet Club over the Bloodline, so.
Well, we don't know if Hikuleo is fully chosen Bullet Club. So coming on Friday, the Mutiny Tour, they're airing the Hikuleo Jay White match. So I'm sure it's going to be some kind of ramifications or some kind of development happening between Hikuleo and Jay on Friday, which could then spill over to this Saturday show, and maybe Hikuleo is upset about how that match happens, or maybe there's an angle at the end of that match, and maybe he's not really Bullet Club, and maybe he ends up turning on Jay mid-match, or maybe Jay, like you said, Josh, turns on Hikuleo mid-match and leads him as a sacrifice.
My only issue with that is not saying specifically that this match is, selling. Have the tickets even gone on sale yet?
For what?
Yeah, they have for this show.
Well, yeah, it's
yes, but it has not sold out, I don't believe.
Well, what I was getting at is, not to say that this match is the top selling point for the show, but wouldn't that be a little deceptive if you're buying the ticket and you're being advertised that you're getting Hikuleo and Jay White as a tag team, but then hypothetically, once the match between them airs and there's issues, that could result in them not even being the tag team that ends up competing anyways. I don't know. I feel like that could potentially get into like deceptive practices. But on the other hand, the mere fact that they are teaming together, I think kind of tips their hat a little bit to let you know, like, whether there's strife or not, like, they're not splitting up right now. And if it does happen, it might happen in this match. I don't know.
Which is why I thought Tama might be the one to get himself involved.
Right, definitely. You could have Tama kind of coming out. Maybe he's talking to Hikuleo, getting in Jay White's face. There can definitely be some God interference here. But either way, I think we're gonna get our answer what side Hikuleo really is on, whether he is truly Bullet Club or if he's gonna be joining up with his brothers in Guerrillas of Destiny. But it should be an interesting match here. A preview match for the Dominion main event. Okada defending the world title against Jay White at Dominion. We got Trent Beretta back here in the mix. Should be a fun semi-main event. We did have a question here from Reddit user MJSPR. Says Trent is getting a pretty big spot tagging with Okada. Is he there to eat a pin ahead of Dominion, or is Tony protecting everyone at AEW?
Before I answer that question, I just want to say, if hypothetically Hikuleo turns on his brothers, I think there's money in a God versus Hikuleo Haku match. Just throwing it out there. Pretty sure there's money in that. But yeah, as far as Trent Beretta goes, Trent is a guy that is a really great hand. He's good friends with Okada in real life. They work together a lot of times. In storyline, quote unquote, they're still Chaos members, and maybe New Japan thinks hypothetically that he might be the most marketable name that they could throw over, since maybe there's not another I guess he could have put Rocky in here, but there's not really too many other Chaos guys to kind of team with Okada anyway. So yeah, I think he probably is the likely pin eater, but at the same time, he brings up a good point. Maybe he's just there for, I don't know what the word is, but just to kind of be seen and to get more eyeballs on him and the connection with AEW, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the one thing with Trent though, he eats a lot of pins on AEW television. He doesn't win a ton of singles matches.
Right.
He lost to Jay White on Rampage, so he's a guy who gotten beat by New Japan guys on AEW TV. He eats a lot of pins on AEW. So if the Okada team loses here, I think Trent could easily once again eat a Blade Runner and get pinned.
I just want good things for Trent, because I think back to when he was in New Japan and he was with Rocky and in Chaos and all of that. And I think he was someone that when he and Chucky left, they kind of didn't really get to mourn the loss at all. So it's kind of also refreshing to see that they're going to have this reunion with him and Okada after all this time. I just, I think maybe I'm still suffering from a little bit of a Bullet Club burnout after Don Taku, where I just want somebody else to get a win that's not Bullet Club. But
well, I was hoping that Trent would turn and join Bullet Club.
They already got juice. They're getting way too big. They need to stop.
There's no limits to the size of Bullet Club. History has shown us this. I mean, it's infinite. So
did we not learn anything from the NWO?
No, it's 2022 and we're still doing NWO. What are you talking about?
Oh man. So moving on.
Scott Norton is in the Bullet Club.
Oh yeah.
Cashing those checks. Yeah.
Good for him.
Moving on to the main event of this show, it will be for the IWGP United States Heavyweight title. It will be up for grabs in a four-way match. The champion, the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, will defend his championship against the Death Rider, Jon Moxley, Rock Hard, Juice Robinson, and the Commonwealth Kingpin and leader of the United Empire, Will Ospreay.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. I mean, without going too in depth, obviously there have been a lot of change-ups recently over the past, even just a couple weeks, but even going further back than that, months and even years. When it comes to the booking of this title, the plans just continually change, and the booking committee with New Japan just keeps rolling with the punches. And I don't think this was the match that was originally intended to happen or planned, but we're pretty fortuitous to be the recipients of being able to see this match, because everything aligned the way it has, for better or for worse. And I can't remember the last time I was this excited for a four-way in New Japan. Honestly, I think the last time I was this excited for a four-way might be like that Wrestle Kingdom. We had Skrull and Hiromu and Ospreay and who was that? And Kushida, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a really high stakes four-way match with a lot of converging storylines. It's kind of cool.
It's a lot to unpack, because you have Tanahashi, who's like the third three-time U.S. champion. You have two former two-time U.S. champions, and then you have Ospreay. But it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know which way this match is going to pan out. Of course, I have the way I want it to pan out, but it's one of those things like, if it's not going to be Tanahashi, I hate to say it, I want Juice Robinson to have the belt, and I want him to have a good run with the belt. because that was the one thing they really didn't afford him when he had the belt. He got it one time and he lost it on the first defense to Cody, and then they had to wait till Wrestle Kingdom to get it back, and then he had a somewhat decent run with it, but then Moxley took it off of him, and then Moxley had it for way too long. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I hate to say it, Ospreay fans, I don't think he's ready to shoulder another a singles championship just yet. But I think if they want to elevate this title to the place they keep saying they want to put it as like the replacement for the Intercontinental title, that it's either going to have to be Tanahashi or Robinson to do it.
Yeah, I'm all for Juice Robinson getting the win here. I think it makes a ton of sense with all the momentum that Bullet Club has after Dontaku and going into Dominion. So it seems like, all the goal is heading Bullet Club's away. So I think it makes sense to put the belt on Juice Robinson. And in this four-way scenario, once again, Will Ospreay can use this four-way match as a claim of New Japan screwing him. And even though it'll be ironic because he was the one who made the challenge for this four-way, he could then lobby claims, say, New Japan forced him in this four-way. He didn't get his one-on-one title rematch. And he can, parade around with those claims and continue his whole campaign against New Japan, screwing him over.
I don't know which way they're going to go with this one.
I just hope it's not Moxley. He's had the belt for too long. He doesn't need it.
It could easily be Moxley because
I know.
Because of the business that he does in both North America and in Japan for them, it could easily be him. I could see it being Will Ospreay. I mean, I understand that they've been doing the storyline with him getting screwed, and if he doesn't win, they're obviously going to continue that through whatever means. But this could be the end of that. This could be like, this time they didn't screw me, and maybe he cheats to win, and then he carries the belt into, say, Forbidden Door. That'd be a way to get him onto the card against whoever. I don't know. This is truly a pick'em. I think all four guys could easily be the winner. And I mean, that's always kind of the case, but like they all have legitimate, routes as far as career trajectory. The only thing I will say, the one guy who I think is the least likely from a certain perspective is Juice. Not because I don't think Juice couldn't carry it in New Japan, but I think Juice wouldn't be a very marketable guy to suddenly get it after having gone through a lull for a little while. And then if they plan to use this title as any sort of highlight during the upcoming co-branded pay-per-view, he would be the least attractive champion of the three. Not saying he still couldn't do it, but that might be the one hiccup to me thinking he might carry it. In Japan, obviously, he'll be over like Rover, but
it's a harder sell here in the States.
Yeah, I'm leaning either Tanahashi retaining or Moxley winning it.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, that can make sense because obviously we've been teasing for a long time now a Moxley Tanahashi one-on-one match at Windy City Riot. Moxley specifically called out Tanahashi, and it seems like that was supposed to be the original plans here before Ospreay got COVID and pulled out of that U.S. title match, and Tanahashi ended up winning the U.S. title. I think either Tanahashi pins Juice or Ospreay, and then you can do Tana defending against Mox at Forbidden Door, or Mox wins and Mox can defend against Tana at Forbidden Door.
I was going to say one of those two, or build off of Resurgence from last year where Lance Archer told Tanahashi he wants a rematch on AEW, and if Tana were to keep it, Forbidden Door would be a great place for them to have that rematch.
That's possible too. I mean, there's so many kind of like loose threads when it comes to the U.S. title and the different.
There's no stability to it. They need someone to give it stability.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, there's a lot of different things they planned to do, wanted to do that didn't pan out, and then it's been a little hot potato-y with this title, and I think that it's great putting it on big names and having attractive matches for it, but at the same time, if there's no stability, then the title kind of loses some of its prestige. It kind of becomes like never status, and you don't really want it to get there. So I'm going to say normally I would say no to Tanahashi retaining, but just because of the circumstances, I think he does win. but I do struggle to figure out who he beats because I feel like all three guys like really, man, it's a tough one to figure out who's going to win it. It's a tough one to see who's going to take the pin.
If Tanahashi does retain, I think the only person who could probably take the pin and be okay with it would be Juice. Because if he pins Ospreay, it's too definitive. If he pins Moxley, like going back to the whole AEW argument, he's probably not going to pin Moxley clean unless Ospreay does something to help him out,
or someone else,
or someone else. It's just one of those things where it's just like it's hard. It's trying to wrap your head around all the different ways it could go.
Yeah,
there's so many ways it could go.
Right. I mean, the thing that really,
even though it's a 4-way.
The thing that really has me, back in juice here is just how hot that angle came off at Wrestling Dontaku with his heel turn and him joining Bullet Club, and there's so much buzz around him turning, and that angle came off so well. Like, I think a great way to follow that up would be to have him win the title. But then again, like you mentioned, Josh, you got to think about the implications of Forbidden Door and how all that's going to play out. So yeah, I mean, literally any one of these guys can walk out with a championship here.
Go ahead.
I'm also hesitant about having Juice be the guy that eats the pinfall either way, because whether he wins or not, if he's the guy eating the pinfall, it does hurt his momentum a little bit. Coming off of what you just kind of mentioned, Jeremy, one thing I will predict, if any of these guys do win other than Tanahashi, unlike other multi-man title matches where the champion doesn't get pinned, I think Tanahashi's the prime guy to take the pinfall from any of the other three guys. That to me, that makes the most sense, and it'll be definitive in that way.
If that's the case, I think it's gonna be Mox pinning Tanahashi to keep Ospreay's getting cut out and screwed out of the whole storyline. Like that's the only way I could see it. That would be the only way I could see it happening.
And if Mox is the guy that wins the title, then that means that there's a good possibility that he ends up in the G1 at that point. I guess depending what happens at the upcoming pay-per-view, of course. But
yeah, I mean, I could see a situation where Mox hits a Death Rider on Tanahashi, then Ospreay sneaks in, steals the pin from Moxley, gets a title, and then you can do a Ospreay-Moxley rematch at Forbidden Door.
Man, this is a tough one. I don't know. I'm going Tanahashi because I'm just going Tanahashi. I don't know.
Me too. The belt needs stability, and Tanahashi's the only one who can give it stability and elevate it.
I don't know. I'm going to back Juice here. I love that angle, and there's so much buzz, and I'll probably be wrong, but I don't know. I'll back our boy here.
Well, at the end of the day, they're going to do another Juice and Tanahashi match, and down the line somewhere, and the real question is, how do we get from here to there? You know what I mean?
Right.
And will the title even be involved?
Yeah, because with Dominion, they could easily they could either give Juice or Ospreay the singles match at Dominion.
Right.
It's true.
And we'd have a question
here. They could run it back, all four guys.
Yeah.
Do you think AEW could give up Moxley for the weekend?
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah. We did have a question here from Reddit user Less Commission 7252. Says, would you guys say that Jon Moxley has cursed the United Championship after he held onto it for over a year, barely defending it? When was it first introduced into the company? It was held at least for 3 to 4 months, but after he lost it, the belt has been passed around every 1 to 2 months.
I wouldn't blame Moxley for that. That's a booking decision. Like, they chose to put the belt on him, and they chose to shelve it for a year while he was when the pandemic started and everything else. So it's one of those things, like, I don't blame Moxley. I blame who's ever in charge of the booking of the championship, because things like Kenta getting injured and Sonata getting injured, that's stuff like that just happens.
Right.
I wouldn't pin it on Moxley.
I'll just say this, and I know I don't usually like to be this guy, but it's just the truth. That title really hasn't meant that much since Kenny Omega lost it. When he held it, it was main eventing shows. After he lost it,
Didn't he have a match with Yoshihashi where he didn't bring the belt? So it's, I don't know. I just feel like in less than 5 years that there's been 14 champions, plus it sat on the shelf for a year.
Yeah. And when he
it deserves
held it,
It deserves much better booking, and I feel like while the Never and the IC title were around, it was an afterthought, and now they're scrambling to make it worth something.
Except when Kenny held it. When Kenny held it, it was main eventing big time shows, and it was a major prize because he was the top guy and he held it. And after he dropped it, it didn't mean shit with Switchblade. It didn't mean anything with Juice. He got booked into oblivion. Cody fucked off with that belt. That belt hasn't really meant much. I mean, it's only just now starting to kind of mean something.
Right. I think
the only times it's been placed high on Wrestle Kingdom cards when Kenny had it and when Tanahashi had it. That's it.
Exactly. And so with the IC title being gone now, I think they are trying to figure out where the US title lands in the pecking order. It seemed like at one point, they were trying to elevate the Never title when it was on Jay White, but it seems like Never is kind of going back to its original slotting, and I think they're going to try and focus on making that US title that number 2, that IC level title. But the only way they can do that is to, get a champion who's going to hold the belt for a while, establish it, and again, keep it on main event guys like a Kenny Omega, Hiroshi Tanahashi, who can main event pay-per-views, who can be in semi-main events at Wrestle Kingdom.
And here's the thing. You have an entire U.S. division. That belt should be visible at all the U.S. shows. It should not be stuck in Japan for months at a time. You need to have it on. You need to have it on someone who can go back and forth.
But it's like the Intercontinental title. It doesn't matter. It's it's just a designation. It's just like the European title is never in Europe. It's whatever,
Yeah, but I mean, we have New Japan Strong. We have the Strong Openweight. Why isn't the U.S. Championship featured more heavily on the U.S. based New Japan program? That's my biggest problem with it, especially in the last 2 years. They've had Kenta defended that briefcase when he had it more, both in Japan and on New Japan Strong. Then that belt's been defended in the last 2 years on the U.S. soil.
Yeah,
Again, somebody give me the playbook. I'll book the belt and make it worth something. Tanahashi might have it for a long time, but that's fine.
We had a question here from Rainbow and Slam Pig. It says, how will the matches at Capital Collision build to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view? Or will it kind of exist off to the side the same way prior NJPW USA has been? It feels more cohesive these days.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, obviously. I mean, they've got some AEW talent involved on the show. I'm assuming that there'll be a lot of announcements and, surprises. We saw some of that on just the last Windy City Riot show, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have stars from either company coming out for various different reasons to kind of build to that show. I'm not saying that everything will be built here, but some stuff will definitely be built, and so that's kind of my expectation.
Yeah, they don't have another U.S. pay-per-view style show before Open Door, Forbidden Door. So it's one of those things they could do stuff on Strong, but it'd probably fall more onto the show this weekend or setting stuff up on AEW TV programming.
Right, and I think
or just announcing things, being like, "Hey guys, just so you know, here's your 20-man tag match. Enjoy."
When you see Riot, I mean, we saw a lot of angles happen to set up this show that I don't think people were expecting. The whole Brody challenging Suzuki and Kingston coming out and cooking the promo on Ishii. We saw a lot of angles that led to this show, and I think there's a potential for a lot of angles to come out that will lead to Forbidden Door. You also got to think we do have Dominion at the beginning of June. We could see guys go to Japan and set up angles for Forbidden Door, and like you mentioned, Karen, obviously we can have guys show up on Dynamite or Rampage. I mean, we're seeing some of the LA Dojo guys. They're working Dark Elevation and Dark, so we can see more guys show up on AEW programming to set up Forbidden Door matches.
Same thing too. It's a showcase show. You know what I mean? It's an attraction show. So I mean, there might be some stories leading into it, but I'm not going to be surprised at all if we're getting, if we just get a card announced with major, some major matches and stuff like that. I mean, you look at Starrcade 95, there wasn't, a program set up for Otani and Eddie Guerrero. They just went out there and did it, and it fucking rocked. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of that.
Yeah.
A press conference would be nice though. Or some sort of informational special program, YouTube special, whatever, to explain, especially for the fans on both sides of the fence that aren't familiar with the other company's talent. Because that was a
Right.
problem that we had with, the Noah show, with the crossover show back in January at Yokohama Budokan. And it's for some people that were able to see the New Japan All Japan show, same thing. It's the communicating to the audience as a whole that, yes, while some of you know who these people are, many of you probably don't, and educating them and saying why this matters or why this show matters. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think that'd be fun. I think a joint press conference could be a lot of fun. Do some angles, some pull apart brawls, and really kind of spark some fire for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view.
Have you wanted to use your home equity to pay off debt or improve your house, but found the old way too painful? There's now a new, better option for accessing your home equity. It's called HomePace. Here's the key. It's not a loan, so there's no monthly payments or interest. Instead, HomePace gives you money up front as an investment in your home. That's right, you get money that you can use however you want without the burden of monthly payments. Then someday when you decide to sell, you share a portion of the gains or losses in your home's value with HomePace. That means if your home's value drops, HomePace takes a loss too. HomePace gives homeowners a better choice to access home equity. No monthly payments, no interest. To get an instant quote, go to homepace.com/quote. It takes less than 5 minutes. That's homepace/quote to get started.
You made it. Checked out of office to check into the sweet views of this place where the kids aren't asking for the Wi-Fi.
Mom, can we go to the pool?
And when you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.
Well, now that's it for Capital Collision. Should be a fun show this Saturday. Let's turn our focus now to Best of the Super Juniors 29, which will be kicking off this Sunday in Japan. So those for you who are new, Best of the Super Juniors is an annual tournament that is held every year by New Japan. Originally, it was Top of the Super Juniors in 1988 before becoming Best of the Super Juniors in 1994. The tournament is held in round-robin format with the field of wrestlers split into 2 blocks. Each will have a match of every wrestler in their block in order to score points. The scoring system is as follows. A win is worth 2 points, a draw is worth 1 point, and a loss is worth 0 points. Whoever has the most point in each block at the end of block play will advance to the finals, where it is winner takes all. Should there be a tie for first place, a tiebreaker will go to the winner of the block match. And before we look at the participants, I just want to plug the final countdown series that Josh and I did during the pandemic when New Japan was shut down. We went back and we watched every Super Junior / Top of the Super Junior tournament final match that was on tape from 1988 all the way to, I think we went up to 2019 to watch all those final matchups. I think there was 3 years where we couldn't find the footage for it, but go back in the archives, check out the final countdown, and check out those finals matches from Best of Super Juniors. A lot of really great matchups from those finals. So now we'll look here at the participants from each block, kind of talk about their history in the tournament, and then talk about matches that we're looking forward to these people being in, and then who we think has a good shot at winning their block and then winning the whole tournament. So we'll start with the A block. First guy we'll look at is Risuke Taguchi. This is his 19th entry in Best of Super Junior, his 17th consecutive. He was the 2012 winner, and he is currently one half of the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. So Karen, how you feeling about the Funky Weapon here?
I mean, I always enjoy the Funky Weapon. I guess we're going to finally, it's been a long time coming. We'll have the return of Serious Taguchi, but I don't know. I think I know people keep pulling for Taguchi one last run with the title and one last run with winning Super Juniors. He doesn't need it. He's one of the most decorated people in this entire tournament. He just needs to go there and have a good time. And honestly, I want to see Yo pin him finally, because that still hasn't happened.
it was interesting during the press conference for this event. They had Ishimori, and he complained that he's in the same block as both Kanemaru and Taguchi. Feels like it's a conspiracy because, Taguchi has quite a few pinfall wins in singles matches against him. So, kind of look for that to maybe continue to be a storyline, or, however that plays out. But yeah, I kind of echo the same sentiments as Karen. Taguchi, he's a guy that has been really clutch in these tournaments for many years, but we're getting to the point where, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we have 1 to 2 big match performances. He's just kind of a bit player in there. He goes out there, does his shtick. He'll be solid. I'm not saying he's gonna like just completely phone it in. I mean, Taguchi's great, but
he can easily play spoiler for someone.
Yeah, he'll
Definitely.
probably. I think that's where he's kind of resigned to. There was a time not too many years ago where he was a guy that was always in play to be a tournament or a block favorite. And, you kind of look at the field that he's in now, and I can't say that same thing right now. I don't think that's realistic. So I think he'll do well. I think he'll spoil some people. He'll have some good matches, but that's about the best we can hope for. I wouldn't be surprised if with him spoiling people, we don't see him get a quickie victory over somebody like he did over Kushida a few years ago.
Right. And I think another thing to be on the lookout for, like I mentioned, he is one half of the junior tag team champions right now. So anybody who pins him could potentially set up a junior tag title match, people who have partners. And I think the first thing that really popped out to me is Francisco Akira, new United Empire member, and TJP's in the other block as well. So you could have Francisco Akira pinning Taguchi, which sets up Akira and TJP challenging Taguchi and Wato.
I could easily see it switch the other way around with TJP pinning Wato, since they're in the same block together.
Right.
I mean, if it comes down to Wato eating the loss or Taguchi, I'm always going to lean towards Wato. Just saying.
Yeah. And also in this block, I mean, you have Hiromu. You could do Hiromu and Bushi. You have Kanamaru. You can do Kanamaru Despi or Kanamaru Doki. You got Ishimori. You can do Ishimori ELP. So there's a lot of options here for people. When they beat Taguchi, it could also lead to junior tag title match in the future. But yeah, like you guys mentioned, Taguchi should be a solid performer here. Should have some, decent matchups, play spoiler, but honestly don't think he has any shot at winning the A block here. So moving on to the next participant, the ticking time bomb, Hiromu Takahashi. This is his 7th entry, his 3rd consecutive. He is the 2018, 2020, and 2021 winner.
Yeah, so I mean, more Hiromu, which is great. I mean, Hiromu's, the poster boy for the division, has been for a long time, and it's been years since we've had a final that he wasn't involved in, and he's won the majority of the tournaments the past few years. I mean, if he did win this year, I think he ties Koji Kanemoto for most tournament wins, which would put him in rarefied air. But he's doing it in a much more compressed and shorter time span than Kanemoto did all those years ago. So that's kind of something to look out for. My whole feeling is, like, if he does win, now could he win the block? Sure. And can he win the tournament? Yeah. But if he does, I mean, I'll be bored to death with the junior division, considering how many outsiders they brought in, how many exciting new, like, fresh storylines they could be doing. If we're just going back to Hiromu winning the tournament again, I'll be very much questioning the competency of the booking committee at this point. But I can't remember a tournament in recent memory where he wasn't the standout guy across the board. So look for Hiromu to show up, stand out, and probably outperform everybody in the tournament. And that's not hyperbole. That's what history tells us he does time and time again.
I love Hiromu. Don't get me wrong. But again, if you look at his track record, he isn't someone who needs to win this tournament. He's consistently in the main event. He's a multi-time IWGP junior heavyweight champion. He doesn't need the Super Juniors. You know what I mean? I get tying the more advanced record and becoming even more advanced as a man within the division. But part of me feels like he's outgrown the division. Like, he should be fighting open weight at this point. He's fought heavyweights. He's gone very far in the New Japan Cup in the past. This is something I've always been, holding close to my heart about the junior division. They need to make more people credible threats in the division, or the belt is always going to go back through the same 4 people: Hiromu, Desperado, Ishimori, and Robbie Eagles. That's it. And I love all of those guys, but there are so many other people in the division that could stand to have a share of the wealth.
Yeah, totally agree.
Because at this rate, if Hiromu wins, he's already going to be a lock for the dome already. Because he's a runaway favorite. But for some people, that's great because the Hiromu fans love it for him. But if you love the division and you want what's best for the division, I don't necessarily think Hiromu winning the entire tournament again, especially this close in consecutive manner, I just don't think it's necessary for him.
Right, and we've been saying that for a while now here on this show. Anytime we talk about Hiromu and his spot in the junior division, it has to move away from being just Hiromu and friends. They need to elevate other people, create new stars, so that way Hiromu can venture up, do some more open weight stuff, and potentially become heavyweight. You need to create some more relying draws within the division. I think they've been trying to do that with El Desperado, but you still need some other people to elevate and bring some excitement into division. Now, that being said, I do think Hiromu is a heavy favorite here to win the A block. When I look at the field, there's a lot of debut entries in here. There's a lot of guys where I don't see them winning this block or even the whole tournament. But Hiromu is one of the guys I look at here that I think he is definitely one of the heavy favorites to win this A block and to get into the finals again. Any particular matchup that you guys are looking forward to for Hiromu?
For me, with Hiromu, sort of looking at the field here, I think I'm going to go with Alex Zane. He isn't necessarily somebody that I'm overly excited about, but just the daredevil nature of both of those guys really might, kind of spark that old flame in Hiromu. So that's probably the one I've got earmarked.
You can't go wrong with him versus Ishimori. But I am curious about him versus Kanemaru.
Why do you say that?
For some reason, I just feel in my gut that, not saying it's Kanemaru's year, but I feel like he's meant for more than just being Desperado's left-hand man and now tagging with Doki. Because, when he was in Noah, he was very highly decorated, and he hasn't really had that opportunity as a singles competitor in New Japan yet.
Right, and we'll talk about Kanemaru in a second, but I do feel like he is a guy that usually is pretty slept on, and he ends up winning more matches than people expect or beating people that people don't think he would beat. He's definitely a guy to keep your eyes out for in these type of multi-block tournaments.
Yeah.
For me, I'm most interested in probably Hiromu versus Francisco Akira. I really loved Akira's match with Gabe Kidd at Rev Pro a few months ago, and I think him and Hiromu could have a really hard-hitting and just high-flying, crazy matchup. So moving on to the next participant here, Yo. This is his 5th entry, 2nd consecutive. How are we feeling about Yo here?
Yo's here. I will be fair to Yo since Karen is with us.
You can bury him, it's fine.
I'm not going to bury him because, this is going to tell us a lot. He's a guy that last year he went through that whole redemption story, right? And then at the end of it, lost the finals. But you would have thought the way that they booked him, it would have led to, it was supposed to be a redemption story where he just fails at the end and then comes out stronger. But he hasn't really progressed from a booking standpoint at all since then. If anything, he's maybe regressed. So it kind of feels like they're maybe setting the stage for something similar to happen. The only thing that's confusing is it's going to be much harder for him to run that same kind of gauntlet with so many fresh faces and new stories and things like that. So I do think that it's interesting. I might not be excited for it, but it is interesting from that standpoint, where they go with him moving forward in this tournament.
Yeah. So for me, it's like I want to be cautiously optimistic for him, especially after him getting to the finals. But then seeing the rug pulled out from under him, starting with the dome show against Show, and how it's kind of like he finally got to that first plateau, and then they just like shot him straight back down to the bottom. And like his match with Hiromu at Dontaku, like that lead up where Hiromu was like, "Are you just collecting a paycheck? What are you doing here? Don't assume you're going to be in the Super Juniors. You're not even acting like you care anymore. Like you're just like you're so checked out." So for me, it's like I don't want to emotionally invest myself again to believe that he could be that guy, especially when he's in the same block as Hiromu, Ishimori, and Sho. Like that's very hard for me as someone who's a longtime Yo fan. Like I want him to succeed, but I don't trust the company at this point to let him. Like I feel like if they're gonna give him another, like he drops the first few and then runs the table again, I don't want them to start turning him into Sonata every year when Sonata's in the G1.
Right.
That's a good comparison.
But that's the pattern they give him. He's always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Right, and I think with the whole Wrestling Dontaku match with Hiromu and the build-up to that match, I do feel like we are being set up here for another redemption story for Yo. I feel like it's going to start off the same way. He's going to eat a lot of losses, and he's going to come back and potentially make a play to be in the finals. Also, the big matchup here is him and Sho are on the last night, so to me that screams a potential.
They are?
Yeah, that screams potential, the winner of that could potentially could win the block and go to the finals. We know last year Yo beat Sho, so maybe Sho gets his revenge here, and Sho knocks Yo out from going to the block finals, and either Sho could go to the block finals or shows it's a spoiler and stops Yo from going to the finals.
If they end up, sorry, go.
I was going to say, I'm not that excited for a redemption story, but what I would be excited for is if Yo goes out there and works a redemption style match structure. What I mean by that is instead of like all of us like wondering, is he going to get these quick roll ups and, pull a fast one on guys? What if he just went out there and just started fucking killing it? You know what I mean? Like, just start having like banger ass matches. If he goes out there,
that's all I want for him.
If he just goes out there and starts having great matches, I'll shut my mouth about Yo and I'll give him his flowers because I think he does probably have that potential. We haven't seen it lately, but if he were to just go out there and just start working like killer matches with guys and just looking great, then that's really all then from there you're like, man, he really made a name for himself in that Super Juniors, which is not something we've ever been able to say about him, even in last year's tournament. So,
right. Yeah. If he's not going to win this block, I think he really needs to have some killer performances. He needs to be a guy at the end of this tournament where we're debating whether he was, the MVP of the A block, MVP of the whole tournament. Like, he needs to really put on some star-making performances, especially if he's not going to end up winning the A block and getting to the finals.
See, the hard thing about it for Yo is that like there are people in this block that he never beats. He never beats Taguchi. He hardly ever beats Hiromu. He never beats Ishimori. Sho, it's 50-50. And then Kanamaros tends to outsmart just about everybody. So it's he's got a very large mountain to climb. And, not knowing how he's going to work with Connor, Zane, Austin, or Akira, it's just... I want to believe so badly, but it's more it's just I'll believe it when I see it right now, just because I haven't seen it and I haven't felt it. Like, I need him to ditch, like, I love his all white gear. I need him to ditch it. I need him to be sparkly again. I need something from him because he ever since he's come back and switched to this mode of himself, he's missing, like, he's there, but his soul, it doesn't feel like it's in it anymore.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard to believe him as a downtrodden underdog baby face.
Well, Goto's not the best guy to take style advice from, so
Hey, at least Goto has some texture and some design and some color on his clothing.
No, I'm referring to this is the same gear Goto wore that time when he came in with all the
Oh, the all white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. It's just,
You should dress like Okada. You dress like Okada, you might get pushed. You know what I'm saying?
He
color your hair. Do something.
I just like want to make him over and just be like, be a sparkly happy boy again, because you like felt like you meant something or you even cared at that point. Like I just feel like his heart's not in it anymore. Which is heartbreaking to watch as a longtime fan.
Yeah. See what Doki does and then just do that and you'll get over.
Doki wears lots of sparkly and textured clothing.
You want,
and a mask.
You want Yo to have death matches with Jun Kasai?
Yes.
Sure. If that lights a fire under him, sure. Hell, I'll fight him. We'll see how that works.
Let's take a look at the next participant here. Yoshi Nobu Kanamaros, this 5th entry, 2nd consecutive. How are we feeling about the Drunken Master in this year's tournament?
Yeah, he's a spoiler and sleeper favorite. I don't know. I feel like something in my gut's telling me that there's something to watch about him this year.
Kanemaru has that reputation from a certain, less knowledgeable or, more recent, joiners of the fan base where they think he's kind of like someone that you can skip his matches or just miss. And most of the time he'd probably be right. But during Super Juniors, he does turn up a gear and he does kind of facilitate that quasi dad role where, like Liger and Tiger Mask, they always turned up for these tournaments. Well, he does the same thing and he gets surprising wins you wouldn't expect. And his matches are they're very varied. They're very different all across each night. And they're very enjoyable. And so he's kind of this strange X factor that you can't discount, even though he's not going to win the tournament. And I'm always glad when he's in these, honestly.
It's like you take Liger, Tiger, and Yano and roll them all into one, and that's Kanemaru. Like you take all the yeah, that too. Like there's just like he gets very out of the box, especially when it comes to trying to get people counted out. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy about him is that he reminds everybody that wrestling isn't just who's the strongest or who's the fastest. You have to use your brain too.
Right, and that's the one thing I do like about Kanemaru's matchups is, especially if you watch the undercard matchups, he usually does a lot of work the night before to set up his block matches. There's been several times where he will attack an opponent's knee, their arm. He'll set up some kind of injury angle the previous night on the undercard in the multi-man matchups, and then play on that in his matchup in the tournament match, the block match the next night. And we've seen that over and over again, especially the last couple tournaments he's been in, where one night he jumps a guy, hits him with a chair on the knee, and then the next night, he's always doing is working that knee, working the figure four, and it sets up a story, and either he's going to take advantage and win, or that guy's going to come back and one up Kanemaru.
Yeah, Kanemaru in undercard B block tag matches, he's going to be like, fuck your knee, bing bong. Doesn't give a fuck.
Any matchups here that we're looking forward for Kanemaru?
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see him against Ace Austin.
Yeah, why not?
And Yo, I mean, but then again, Yo might not win. He could win, but and then him and Kanemaru and Ishimori.
Yeah, Ishimori was who I was going to say.
With Yo, oh well, yeah, there's a lot of history there, obviously. For me, Yo being the most pure babyface guy in the whole block, and Kanemaru being like, the slimy old bastard.
The heel master?
Yeah, like that's probably why I'm most excited for that.
Yeah, I think even him and Sho, you could have like a cheat off who can out cheat each other the most with him and Sho.
Oh, Sho.
Well, he already did that last year, remember?
Yeah, well, they can run it back.
Yeah. Sho had a lot of issues.
Sho's not going to learn his lesson either. He's going to get counted out again.
So next up, we're going to look at the Bone Soldier, Taiji Ishimori. It's his 6th entry, 5th consecutive, and he is the current reigning IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion.
He won the title. Obviously, that would normally give you a lot of momentum coming into the tournament. But in this case, because it just happened so quickly and haphazardly, I feel like he's just, the champion. He's just the guy that has the title. He's obviously going to do really well. He's going to win a lot of matches and be in play towards the end. But and Ishimori is a great talent. So hopefully the fact that he is the champion will inspire him to have more, kind of competitive matches and because I feel like he hasn't really taken the last 3 Super Juniors super seriously, aside from a couple hand selected matches. Not like his first Super Juniors, he came in and was like, but he hasn't looked like that in a while. I did see during the press conference, I felt bad, just to kind of give you an idea, where they did an open question and answer session, right? And when it was Okada's turn, he had 8 different publications asking him questions. Ishimori had 2. And it was Tokyo Sports and it was New Japan's official website. There were the only 2 that asked him questions, and they were not even really about him. They were questions about just they were kind of like, man, you guys didn't prep any questions? This is horrible. So, it kind of gives you an idea of what the I guess the wrestling press over there kind of feels about him in this title run,
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing for Ishimori is that he's been the junior tag champion 3 times. This is his 3rd reign as the singles champion. He's another one. He can consistently have great matches. He doesn't need to win the tournament. I love Ishimori, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's there to set somebody up for a title match at Dominion. Someone's going to pin him.
Right, and usually in these,
Usually it's a Super Junior winner that goes against him, but I feel like they're also going to set up his...
There is one hole in that logic. I agree with what you're saying, but he's never won a Super Juniors.
Correct.
He's not going to win this one, but that's kind of a missing piece of his legacy in New Japan right now.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere anytime soon,
right?
Even though he is in his late 30s. I don't think this needs to be his year to win it. Has anyone won it recently as champion? No. Usually it's somebody else because they would have to.
It was the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Usually in these, two block tournaments, the champion is not winning a block or getting in the tournament finals. I can definitely see Ishimori ending with 12 points and being alive in the final night, but I don't see him winning.
I feel like that's what happened to him 2 years ago. He got into the last night and then got eliminated based on points or win losses.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen for him again. Like you mentioned, Karen, I think also his match is going to be very important because whoever beats him is going to be potential challengers for Dominion and future tours. And, but I think like you mentioned, Josh, with him being champion again, I think he's going to feel very motivated. I think we're going to see some better performances from him. I mean, he has a lot of good guys here in this block to have great matches with. We know him and Hiromu typically have pretty great matchups, and you got a lot of fresh blood here with Alex Zane and Ace Austin and Francisco Akira and Clark Connors. I feel like they set him up here with a lot of great opponents that he could really shine here.
The interesting thing, though, even though he's champion, he's kind of slotted to that I'm the guy with the belt, but the real star is Hiromu, because almost every night that the A block is headlining, Hiromu's in the main event. He's not headlining.
That was the same problem Desperado had, too.
Right. And the interesting thing is Ishimori will be facing Hiromu on the last night of A block action. So to me, that's a clear block decider matchup right there.
Hiromu's losing that night.
Really? You think Ishimori's going to beat him?
I don't think Hiromu's winning the block. I think Ishimori's going to beat him to knock him out of contention for winning the block.
And then lose to whoever wins B block?
Well, no,
he's losing to Doki, right? Doki's winning the whole Super Junior.
I'm pretty sure either Sho or Yo are winning this block.
Don't get my hopes up.
I'm not saying that for your benefit.
I'm old, Josh. My heart can't take it. I can't take any more disappointment and heartbreak.
I called Yo winning the block last year, and I think it's going to be Sho or Yo again this year.
Sho. Oh, Sho.
Well, speaking of Sho, he's the next guy here on the list. This is his fifth entry, fifth consecutive. He is 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man tag team champions. And I do agree. I think Sho is a heavy favorite here to win the A block. You look at the push he's been getting with House of Torture and everything that's been going on there. And obviously he's been a guy, even before the heel turn, a guy that they've been building up and pushing in these Super Juniors. He's been having great matches previous the heel turn, and somebody's been pushed every year. You can look at his point totals kind of going up and being pushed higher and higher in these tournaments. And again, you look at that final night, he's facing Yo. So to me, once again, like the Sho and Yo match and then the Hiromu Ishimori match are like the two most important matches from the A block on that final night of action, where both blocks will be in action on that final night there before the finals. So I feel like him and Yo are going to be a very important matchup. He's going to be looking for revenge to beat Yo and get into the final. So I could see Sho win the A block. Do I want him to win the A block? No, because I'm not sure what kind of show we're going to get here. If we're going to get House of Torture Sho, I don't want him to win the A block. But if we're potentially maybe get a little bit of the old Sho, I would be fine with him winning the A block.
Sho's winning the A block. I'm just telling you right now. Like, I could be wrong, but I think he's winning the A block. And, of course, it's like you said. It depends on which Sho we're getting. At this point in time, I'm pretty sure, no matter what, we're getting House of Torture Sho. But I'm holding out hope that maybe in a final scenario, he's like, it's like Jay White. All those years where Jay White was like, kind of inconsistent, a lot of story, driven matches where they're developing his character and all the shenanigans. And then when the time was right, he went out there and he had bangers with guys like Okada and Tanahashi and stuff like that. So maybe we already know what kind of talent Sho is. He's quite honestly, from his generation of guys, the most talented one, in my opinion, and the person that I would build the division around. And he's being held down by a terrible gimmick. And eventually that's going to shift, So I'm still bullish on him long term. But just kind of looking at the block, I don't know if he's winning Super Juniors. But I'm looking at this block, and I think the tea leaves are there. I think he's winning the A block, period.
Yeah, the only thing for me with him winning the A block, as I was looking at the B block, I was just trying to figure out, and we'll talk about the B block here in a second, like, who does he face? Yeah, who does he face? And like when I look at the B block, I mean, there's only a few guys I think can really win, and I don't think they make a compelling matchup for a Sho in the finals.
Desperado versus Sho would be a great match.
Yeah, Teton.
Hey, Teton's awesome, but he's not going to a finals here.
No.
Former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Bushi. What are you talking about?
Well, we'll get to the B block here in a second, but yeah, Sho definitely a high contender here for winning this A block, or at least definitely being at play on that final night of block action.
Sho versus TJP, Cruiserweight Classic winner. I don't understand.
I need Sho to come to this matchup this year with a different game plan than he had last year, or correction, 6 months ago. I need Sho to prove that he's learned something, that while his tactics have gotten him far, if he can find a balance between being a heel wrestler and what he had when unfortunately Yo was not in the picture, and kind of shove that together, you'd have somebody comparable to Hiromu and Ishimori, and someone who could eventually go babyface again, because at some point he is going to go back to babyface, and it's what the people want.
Yeah,
it's what the people need.
Now, granted, I will say this, Jeremy, I haven't done any brackets, so I'm just kind of speaking, based on what I'm seeing on paper. But you're right. I could potentially look at B block and come up with a different, final like matchup or whatever. But
we're not getting Sho versus Master Wato.
Well, because there is a part of me that thinks that El Phantasmo could win the tournament.
Oh God.
Oh, I mean, I think that that's something that's going to happen one way or the other.
Eventually.
Whether it's this year or the next year, it's happening.
Next year's fine. I need a break. I need a break from El Phantasmo.
You know, I've been a heavy critic of his, but he's been so awesome lately. I don't even know why. I mean, yeah, I'd be down for it. And if it,
I just don't see a heel versus heel final. Not
right,
versus an all Bullet Club final.
Right.
And so if it, well, they are talking about that potential split between House of Torture, and if that is something you wanted to kind of kick off here, that might not be a bad way to go. The other thing too is you could do like an ELP Yo or ELP Hiromu. Those are things that I think make sense too.
Yeah, I think also all the momentum that Bullet Club has, it makes a ton of sense for some Bullet Club member to be at play to win a block or be in the finals.
Yeah, and they didn't do so hot in New Japan Cup. They kind of got hoed. So yeah, I mean they might.
Well, they got draped in gold in Dontaku, so I think that the scales got tipped back into balance.
Right, they're riding a wave of momentum right now, and so there's a good argument that one of those guys might be the guy.
Yeah. So now we're going to look at the last four participants here, all first-time entries. So first, the Wild Rhino, Clark Connors.
Clark Connors is the guy that I'm most excited about being in this tournament. A huge fan of his. We've not, he's graduated, quote unquote, and he's done some cool stuff. We've seen him in Defy. We've seen him in, Rev Pro and different places like that. But like we have not seen him in Japan against other juniors in a proper setting like this. And I mean, I'm telling you guys right now, when you look back at like those 90s Super Junior lineups and you look at guys like Too Cold Scorpio and Wild Pegasus and Eddie Guerrero, and the list goes on, D. Malenko and Brian Pillman and 1-2-3 Kid. Years from now, people are going to look back and then be like, oh, fuck, Clark Connors was in this. That's how people are going to remember Clark Connors before this is all said and done. Now, I don't know how well he's going to do in the tournament as far as like points go, but for me, I think he is going to be like the breakout guy of the block. I don't know if he'll outperform Hiromu, but he's going to kill himself to try to do that very feat, which no one's done in years. So
the one thing I like about this particular selection of guest entrants is that it's very balanced, and they made sure that somebody from the LA dojo was included. If it wasn't him, I was hoping for Renarita. So it's either, honestly, is perfect. And it's one of those things where we've been fortunate enough as fans to see the evolution of Clark Connors from his debut in New Japan up until now. And of the guests, sorry, Yuta Wheeler, I love you, TJP, sorry, Titan, all of y'all. Clark's the one that deserves this more than just about anybody. And I'm glad that he's the one that got slotted in.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Connors being this tournament. He's been one of the MVPs of the New Japan Strong Show and New Japan of America. Been having great matchups there. He just had his big win a few weeks ago against TJP in the big feud that they've been having going on for a while now. And he had the big strong title match here in Florida, here in St. Pete against Filthy Tom. So Clark Connors is awesome. I think he's going to fill that kind of power junior role that Sho used to fill, because Sho's going to be busy doing the shenanigans. So I think Connor's is going to be the power junior here, pouncing people, sparing people, and having some really fun matchups. And when I look at Connors, I do see a guy like Wild Pegasus. I see like the similarities in the intensity. And like you mentioned, Josh, that's a good shout there. I could see him being one of those like standout guys and hard hitting, as having going out there and really killing it every night and being one of the top performers of this A block.
Him versus Ishimori is going to be really fun.
Yeah, I think that could be fun. I think him and Hiromu, I think that's going to be a really big test for him. I think he's really going to show out when he faces Hiromu on that night.
Yeah, him and Hiromu, I mean, a guy who wants to make a mark in this, company and in this division against the guy that basically represents the division. He's the top of the class. I mean, that's something that, just imagine the strikes those guys are going to throw. They're going to be fucking hitting each other so hard.
Yeah. And I could see Connors getting minimum 8 points in his first tournament here.
I'll have to do my math. I don't know about all that. But,
I was an English major. Don't ask me to do math.
So our next first-time entrant is the Sauce, Alex Zane.
Yeah, Alex Zane is going to be an interesting one. He's a guy that kind of brings something that's been missing from this division over the past few years, that high-flying athleticism, that, devil may care sort of attitude, and also some of that sort of hardcore element from GCW. We've seen what he can do, like in that backyard wrestling environment sort of thing. And fans of New Japan Strong are not going to be strangers to him. He's not a stranger to the, to wrestling within the Cerulean Blue, but at the same time, he's never been to Japan. I was surprised that he was selected here. There are a couple other names that I thought would probably get the bid before him, but he's here. And it's going to be real interesting because Alex Zane is an older guy. He's not a spring chicken, and he's been around for a while, but sort of only started making his name in the past few years. And this is a big opportunity for him. And I mean, he could really, really make a mark here. So, I mean, it's a big opportunity for him and all these guys that are sort of the first time entries.
I think what Zane had working in his favor was that he was working with New Japan Strong before he went off to WWE and then got released by WWE and then went right back to New Japan Strong. So he's been a regular in New Japan Strong brand. So even though he went away just for a little bit, he's still someone who's been consistently there pretty much since, I want to say early 2020, maybe.
Well, he was working back in 2019. He was working
2019.
Yeah, I mean, even pre-pandemic, he was working the initial New Japan US tours.
Yeah, I remembered him at the show in Tampa that we went to right after the Tokyo Dome. But that was like January 2020. That's the one I'm thinking of because he fought Jeff Cobb then. So it's one of those things where he's been around. So I don't know who else could have possibly been put in that place based on the current New Japan Strong roster. So it's a good fit. I'm not used to seeing him wrestle any of these people other than Clark Connors and the other New Japan Strong guys. So I'm curious to see how it's going to pan out for him.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see him mix it up with a lot of these guys. And like you mentioned, Josh, he kind of brings kind of like what we were talking about last week, what's been missing from the junior division, that kind of high pace, high flying, death-defying style that we saw with guys like Ospreay and Ricochet and Dragon Lee and Bandito. So I think he's going to bring a lot of energy. I think he's going to get over very quickly and very easily with the Japanese crowd just based on some of the stuff he can do. And again, I think him and Hiromu, like you mentioned earlier, him and Hiromu mixing it up, those guys can do a lot of high-flying, crazy stuff. Him and Ishimori will probably be a lot of fun as well. And he's a guy, I think he's going to have a lot of fun matchups. I think he's going to have a lot of giftable moments because he is not a champion and he's kind of like the low man as far as status in the totem pole in this block. I don't see him getting a ton of points in his first tournament. I can see him somewhere in that 6-point range, going 3-6. But I think he's gonna make a name for himself though. So the next guy that we'll look at here, the Impact X Division champion Ace Austin.
Yeah, this is something really interesting in this block, and all throughout the tournament. But we've got a few outsiders from different companies who are not only just outsiders but also reigning champions within their company. And, so that's kind of the situation we have here with Ace Austin being the X Division champ. A guy that I hadn't even really given too much forethought about before they announced him coming in. I would have actually thought that they would have brought Chris Bay in, but I'm not opposed to it. I mean, Ace Austin is a highly athletic, very gifted wrestler, and I think he brings something to the table that's very different from the rest of the guys in this block, and he's going to be a welcome addition. During the press conference, Ishimori did mention his ties in the past to TNA and his former reign as an X Division champion. And so he talked about how when they wrestle each other, it's going to be champion versus champion and former X Division champion versus reigning X Division champion. So there is kind of an intriguing aspect to that whole thing there too.
Yeah.
The only other person I would have thought besides Chris Bay that could have been from Impact would have been Trey Miguel. So I do like that they're kind of repaying the favor of their partnership during the pandemic, where they've, Impact was another place that New Japan talent was able to cycle through in the last couple of years without being able to travel back to Japan. So it's great to see somebody from that company get equal footing, because the assumption everyone had was it was going to be either all LA Dojo, all New Japan Strong, or all AEW talent. So this is it's different, and I think the fact that it's different and unknown is actually quite refreshing.
Yeah.
But it also surprised me that Rocky Romero is not in this tournament.
Yeah, we had Rocky on a while ago, and we talked about him potentially being in Super Juniors and that whole goal of going for the junior heavyweight title. And he, kind of joking, he really needs to get ready and focus if he's going to do that again. So I guess clearly this was not the year for Rocky, but yeah, I mean, Rocky did great in that 2019 Super Juniors. Also, that match for ELP was awesome. So yeah, hopefully Rocky will get back in one of these things soon.
Yeah, this is Black Tiger's fault. So, if you want to blame somebody.
Black Tiger.
As far as Impact guys, I was really hoping that we would have seen Speedball Mike Bailey. He had that great match with Jay White, Lone Star Shootout. He was the MVP of WrestleMania weekend. He's been killing it in the X Division in Impact. Kind of surprised he didn't get a shout here. But Ace Austin, he's a very good competitor. He's a high-flying guy. So I think him mixing it up with Zane and mixing it with Hiromu is going to be a lot of fun. I am wondering how much is he going to get protected being X Division champion or not. I know there was a rumor that the X Division championship is going to be defended at Dominion. I have not been able to verify that. So obviously if somebody pins him here, that you can get your challenger for Dominion if that's going to happen. Or we've been seeing New Japan guys on Impact pretty much every week, and New Japan guy can show up on Impact and challenge for the X Division title from beating him here as well.
I like him in this tournament too because he's a franchise guy. I know that there might be some other names that were attractive as well, but I mean, of all those juniors, who's more TNA and Impact, aligned than Ace Austin,
Right. He's been doing. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, I was gonna say with Speedball Mike Bailey, he came into Impact mid-year, meaning mid first quarter this year, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing is that probably the visa processing system for all of this to happen was probably needed to be done several months out. So this roster could have been decided before Bailey even stepped a foot in the United States.
True. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. But yeah, Ace Austin should be a guy to look out here from this tournament. It's kind of hard, though, what his point total is going to look like. I would say being a champion, I can say probably at least 8 points minimum. But, I mean, there's so many guys in here, I just have a hard time seeing him beat. So I just really don't know how many points he's actually going to get here.
He could probably beat Taguchi.
Yeah. No, but I think he'll get some wins. He'll do good, but I also don't think he will be in contention for winning the block.
Do you think, unlike previous years, do you think double countouts or draws could come into play more heavily this year because there are more non-New Japan champions involved in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very much a possibility just because, I know it's a tournament, everybody's going to lose, so that's part of it. So it's not like the IWGP Junior Champion's not going to take losses. He will, as well as other champions. So that's probably just an understood thing. But I mean, it goes back to the old booking philosophies. When you want to protect guys, there are times where DQs and run-ins and count-outs and draws and double eliminations,
Double
those things
knockouts.
happen. Yeah, those things happen. So I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not gonna say we see a lot of them, but the reality is we hardly see any of them.
That's my
Right.
point, is that maybe I'm just watching too much Stardom that I'm more accustomed to. 'Cause I know you don't do the Joshi thing, Josh, but it's one of those things like there's a lot to protect a lot of people. Instead of having a run in, there usually ends up being a double elimination or a double count out or a double knockout. So I was just wondering that maybe that could come back into play more often, because they always talk about the elusive 1 point for a draw, but very seldom can I remember in the last few years where there's been a draw or a double count out.
Right. Yeah.
Not in the Super Juniors.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, Hatman's been booking a lot of draws and Stardom lately. I hear about that on One Nation Radio. A lot of 30-minute or title match draws happening over there.
Yep.
That's what keeps me away.
But yeah, we could see a draw in some scenario here, especially with a lot of champions. A lot of guys need to be protected here. But I tend not to try and book out draws because they usually don't happen. And you're messing with the 1 point math and who needs to get the draw and all that stuff. So. But yeah, Austin should do pretty decent here in his first tournament. And so the last guy here in the A block, United Empire's newest member, Francisco Akira.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the unknown factor in this whole thing, from a certain standpoint, because I mean, Francisco Akira is like gonna be essentially the primary junior of the I was gonna say Undisputed Era of the United Empire, different Yui, and we don't really know how he's gonna fit into the overall grand scheme of things, but I'm assuming he's gonna get an initial strong push through this tournament because of the fact that he is sort of Ospreay's protege. And they got TJP, but he's sort of like the older statesman of that group. And this is kind of like the incoming kid. At the same time, he didn't get the hottest reception with that kind of clunky initial debut. So there's still a lot to kind of prove. I don't know how receptive the audiences are going to be to him when he comes in initially. But he's a guy that I think is okay, for example, just to kind of give you my opinion. I like Alex Zane a lot. I think he's a highly athletic and gifted guy. I don't think he's the most complete wrestler. I think that he, when we watched him wrestle Ospreay a couple months back, he didn't look like he belonged with him. I think there's levels to this thing, and I think he's a guy that might wind up looking sort of out of place considering the high level of performance we get from these juniors. I think Akira's a guy who's not going to deal with that at all. I think he's someone who is every bit the consummate professional and is on the level of everybody else that's in this tournament and is really going to turn a lot of heads. But I wouldn't be surprised if his overall booking isn't unlike El Fantasmo's when he first came into the tournament. Someone that is pushed strongly initially, goes on a run, gets a lot of wins, and then kind of falls apart at the tail end. And maybe isn't even in the booking scenario, maybe gets eliminated 1 to 2 nights out. But I think he's going to be a main player in this tournament.
My thing about the way they introduced Francesco was that Ishimori and El Desperado were in the middle of a conversation and he just shows up. Right. And it was like they both look at him like, the adults are talking right now, son. Do you mind? It just felt very awkward. And I know what they were trying to accomplish with it. The one thing they have working in their favor is they're going to definitely bring over fans of his from the UK and Europe, as well as those from All Japan. But it's one of those things like I know very little about him. I just know he's Italian and he has a Japanese name, sort of. But I know, other than that, I know very little about his skill. I've never seen him in a match. I just know that he's a good wrestler. So it's one of those things like, I don't know what to expect. Am I cautiously optimistic? Yes. But it's also where does he fall into the whole scheme of the United Empire when, again, TJP is already there. So if you go by seniority, TJP is the one who already outranks him based on wrestling experience alone. And he was there first as the junior in the division. He just wasn't able to get to Japan.
Yeah, for some reason,
I just don't know.
I feel like they're going to probably bring Akira into Japan more than they're going to bring TJP. I think they're probably going to use TJP more on Strong and be the United Empire representation on that brand, where you have Akira more being the one showing up in Japan. But I'm pretty excited for Francisco Akira here.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only seen one match of his, the match of Gabriel Kidd from Rev Pro earlier this year, which was just an absolute banger. Those guys were just throwing blows, big suplexes. Like, he was super awesome in that matchup and really hanging with Gabriel Kidd. And so I'm really excited to see what he's going to do in here with guys like Hiromu and Taiji Shimori, Clark Connors, and Ace Austin. Like, I think he's going to have a lot of really good matchups here. Also, I think Hiromu is going to be the guy that's probably going to have a lot of great matches with everybody. But yeah, the Francisco and Hiromu match is probably going to be very hard hitting. Hiromu's probably going to do a lot of crazy stuff in that match as well. I agree with you, Josh. I think Francisco is going to have some strong booking at the beginning. We typically see that when new juniors get introduced. Before Super Juniors, they're usually booked pretty strong, sometimes even win 6 straight, then lose the last 3, or at least win their first few and then kind of go up and down towards the end. So I think he's going to get that kind of booking and potentially maybe even be at play, a kind of dark horse guy in play at the end, or maybe even a spoiler at the end.
Yeah.
So now let's take a look at the B block. First, we'll look at Master Wato. It's his third entry, third consecutive, and he is one half of the IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions.
It's Wato. He's there. He's trying his best. He's doing his darndest. He's going to fight his little heart out, and he's one half of the tag champion, so they'll probably set some stuff up there. But, he's been through quite a few Super Juniors at this point, and I don't know. It's Wato.
I think with Wato, it's like you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst for him. Like, I'm optimistic that he'll have some standout surprise wins, but I don't anticipate seeing him win the whole thing. But he'll give a good fight.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Wato is, like, just looking back at, some of the point totals from his previous tournaments. And so last year, I know it was single block the last couple of years, but last year he did get 8 points, which obviously wasn't high enough to really get him towards the end of the mix there. But when you break it down to a single block, 8 points is pretty respectable. So I'm wondering, with this now being dual block, and if he, if he's going to get 8 points again, or is it going to go down a little bit because it is dual block and there's more tougher competitors in this block?
I hope for good things for Wato.
Yeah, I don't know. I assume that they're going to book their own guys fairly strong, but if he was going to really have an opportunity to stand out and forward himself within the division, he would have already done it the past few years. Could he definitely benefit from this experience being in his first real proper Super Juniors with a full field and everything? Sure. Definitely. But, I'm under no illusions he's not winning this or anything like that.
Right, yeah. He's not going to come anywhere close into being in contention or alive towards the final night. So next up, Robbie Eagles making his 4th entry, 4th consecutive.
Yeah, Robbie Eagles, now, this is someone who has gone out in the past and done exactly what I said Wato should have done. Someone who went out there really, we already kind of, fans of international wrestling and independent wrestling, especially Brit Res and things like that, they already kind of knew what Robbie Eagles was capable of. But there's a time where on this show, we were talking about how his reputation was maybe greater than what he was producing in the New Japan ring. And a couple years ago, he really changed that and utilized the Super Juniors to become much more, so much so that he eventually, won the strap. And who knows? I mean, he showed himself as a very competent and proven champion in the past. He's definitely one of the bigger names in this block. I don't know that I feel that he's going to win it, but I think he's a guy that's going to get, 8, 10 points, most likely, maybe more. So
as a previous champion, I have a feeling he's going to be one of the ones near the top of the block. Would I like to see him win the block? Sure, but I don't think he will when Desperado's in the same block.
Yeah, last year Eagles got 12 points, and other guys that got 12 last year were Ishimori, ELP. They all got 12. Despi got 13. Yo got 14. Hiromu got 15. So Eagles was towards the top of the block last year, and now being a former champion, being one of the top guys in this B block, I definitely see Eagles being one of the guys who gets in that double digits, is a guy that's potentially being alive towards the end of the tournament. Trying to take a look at who. So he's facing off against Teton on the final night. So I don't think that's really going to be a block decider or anything. So that could be kind of tipping the hand that he might not be at play towards the end.
Do you know what that screams? I've been eliminated, but I'm going to get this big win on the final night so that when the final records show, I have the same points as everyone else, but I've already been, knocked out.
Right.
He's another one that's going to mathematically eliminate a lot of people or get them eliminated based on losses to him.
Right. Like, I think that final, like, he's going to walk into that final night with 10 points, beat Teton, end with 12, and be like, yeah, I did great.
Yeah. But Karen did bring up a good point. Like, what if he is someone that could mathematically knock other people out? And what if he comes in stronger than we're anticipating and Teton needs to beat him to open up the field for others? That's a possibility as well.
Yeah, Teton could play spoiler.
Math. Boo. the real competitor all of them are fighting in this entire tournament is math.
Any anticipated matchups here for Mr. Eagles?
Well, I think anytime him and ELP are in a field, you kind of have to throw that out there. And I'm just going to say this, guys, very simply. El Lindemann is my guy for everybody in this field. It doesn't matter who they are. I want to see them wrestle El Lindemann. Is it Desperado? Lindemann. Bushi? Lindemann. TJP? Lindemann. That's my answer.
For Robbie, it's like El Lindemann, yes. Desperado, yes. I would be curious to see him and Wheeler Yuta go. Especially if Robbie is able to pin Yuta. I'd love to see them in an ROH Pure Rules match.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. Like you, Josh, ELP was the first one that came to mind just because of the history they had. And, Eagles used to be in Bullet Club and ELP now in Bullet Club. And just the rivalry that they've built over the past couple of years. That's always a fun matchup. And, yeah, Lindemann versus everybody's going to be great. So him and Lindemann, and, yeah, Karen, him and Utah, that's another great shout there as well. We did have a question here from Reddit user Valeria. It says, why is Robbie Eagles allowed in Best of Super Juniors? He clearly framed ELP, who then had a confident dip for months thanks to this during the Wrestle Kingdom tag match. Will Robbie Eagles what will he think up now to frame the still innocent ELP in their Best of Super Junior match?
I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, to each his own, you believe he framed him, I don't know. I think otherwise.
Sorry for your wrong opinion, Valeria. ELP got caught finally. That's the story.
So moving on to the next guy here, Bushi, with his 10th entry, 7th consecutive.
Bushi will be wrestling in this year's Best of the Super Juniors B block.
Bushi will have awesome entrance gear. He will have awesome mask. He will wear his shirt in a lot of his matchups. He will do a Bushi-Rooney.
He will beat people he has no business beating.
with the MX.
Yes.
With the MX.
And they will go 20 feet across the ring, over the post, and into the third row to celebrate.
He'll be wrestling true luchador style wrestlers from Mexico in
just Teton.
Teton, well, and
El
Doki,
Lindemann and
El
Doki.
Lindemann. And none of them will be as good as you think they should be.
Yeah, Bushi's just going to be just kind of there. He's going to be that, fine little, gentleman's three opener. Yeah, not expecting much out of Bushi here. So let's move on.
The only person expecting big things out of Bushi is Hiromu. Every year he thinks him and Bushi are going to the finals against each other.
They just need to win the tag titles, and then they can have a good time.
Yeah, I don't think that dream's ever going to come true for Hiromu of those guys finaling together. But let's talk about the next guy here. My man, Perro del Mal, the deathmatch specialist, Doki.
Don't be saying my man when you were out here this man's first tournament talking about how sorry he was, and I was like, this man's raw as fuck. You're missing it. This is my man, okay?
I didn't see the light, but now I see. I've been converted to Dokiism. I'm all in the Doki train. This guy has won me over the last couple of years now. He's awesome. This guy puts his body on the line every single night, proving that he's not going back to those dirty indies that he was, slithering around in Mexico. No, none of that for Doki. He's on the big stage here. He's becoming a big star in Japan, and this guy's awesome.
You know how I said my dream match for everybody in this block was Lindemann? Take that back. Let's roll that back for a second. It's different for Doki. For Doki, there's only one match that really matters to me in my book. Doki and El Desperado.
Correct. That is the answer.
Yes. That's going to be a fun matchup. We know the history that's been kind of building there with those guys being in Suzuki-gun. That should be a really fun matchup.
I just want whatever lacerations he endured during Takataichi Mania on Friday. I need all that to heal up because it looked like he had gotten cut across his forehead. Mm-hmm. And if he's not cleared and he misses the Super Junior, I'm going to be very sad for him.
Spoiler alert, I haven't even seen Takataichi Mania yet.
Sorry.
Well, I mean,
sorry.
I still have to watch that.
Takataichi Mania is cursed because that's where Desperado got hurt, and I believe that's like how Kanamaros got hurt. It's just and causing them to miss the Super Junior. So it's always like one of those things where it's really risky for them to do that show right before Super Juniors.
That's exactly what I thought. Those guys are out here having this crazy death match. I'm like, you guys realize you have to be in
June Kasai of all people.
Right.
Like, no, you got plans next month starting on Sunday. Stop it.
I'm gonna need June Kasai to come to the stage and get jumped by everyone in the Super Juniors. I knew that match was a death match, so all bets were off. But I don't know much about it yet, so I do plan to watch that. I still haven't watched that or the 60th anniversary Corkin show, so.
I've only seen the main event of it, and it's wonderful.
I'm going to watch both of those tomorrow, I think.
I watched all the New Japan matches from Takataichi Mania, but yeah, that main event was absolutely wild.
Wow.
But I'm also looking forward to see Doki versus Teton, because, Doki always, he has a little beef with a lot of the luchadors that come into Japan, and I think him and Teton could be a lot of fun, and, a big win there could, put Doki over on these, top luchadors that come in from CMLL.
I would love for Doki to beat Teton and then go to Mexico City and go to Arena Mexico and headline the big fucking building that he never got to headline, and then he beats someone for their title. And then he brings in his own group and just runs roughshod over CMLL. That would be like my dream for Doki at this point.
I mean, Teton is the CMLL World Welterweight Champion.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Like,
I won't say that was the belt that doesn't the one Wato carried as well?
No, that's the junior lightweight champion.
Okay.
Shit. That's the title. They use that title for like their young up and coming stars.
Okay.
I'll cage match it though.
Cage match it, but it like my thing is that like again, it's another champion is in this tournament, so it's like not that I want to say this, but like the last day of Super Juniors, or they could have a whole like half of the card could be just title matches for all these different companies.
Yeah.
Or Dominion's going to be 8 hours long.
Yeah, they can set up a lot of stuff here. Yeah, especially if they want to bring back Teton for Dominion or down the line.
Or if you're going to start sending people to these companies to challenge for the belts.
Right, yeah.
Like, send someone to Ring of Honor, send someone to GLEAT, send someone to CMLL, send someone to Impact.
Just for the record, Teton won the World Welterweight title December 8th, 2019. He's on his 885th day as champion.
Okay.
He has defended the title twice.
In that time?
Well, that's very normal for Mexico.
Okay.
It's very normal. So, like, I'm just kind of letting you guys know this title don't mean shit. And I guarantee you this guy has lost plenty of matches in the 3+ years that he's been, the reigning champion. So I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't even know who runs CMLL anymore, but like they're not like, oh, we gotta protect our champion. They don't care.
So the next entry we'll look at is El Desperado. This is his 6th entry, 3rd consecutive. And you gotta say, when I was looking at the participants and trying to figure out who can win this thing, in my mind I kept picturing Desperado as a champion. And I'm like, oh yeah, Despy's he's gonna win a lot and he's gonna set up some title matches. But I'm like, wait a minute, that's right. Like Ishimori is a champion now, but I definitely think Despy's still gonna be one of the top guys in this block here.
That's very telling that it's like oh yeah, wait, he's not champion anymore. I could see Despy winning the block, if not winning the whole thing. Not that he needs it, because he's proven himself again, like several of the other previous champions, that he's had the championship twice, I think. So it's one of those things for me where it's just like everybody. I mean, I guess if you want to bolster his career and his history as a whole, but I always keep optimistically thinking that this tournament is one that you get to make make someone into a star. And Desperado, especially after his finals match with Hiromu 2 years ago, he's a star. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, him versus El Lindemann. I think that was the reason why he lost the title, was so he could fight El Lindemann without risk of losing the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. But
I think that Desperado is a star in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But he's also a victim of the COVID circumstances and has never gotten an opportunity to truly have a real Super Juniors. And also, he's never won a Super Juniors on that level.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a good possibility that he not only wins the block, but also wins the tournament.
Yeah.
Really, especially if the theory that Hiromu is going to quote unquote leave the division, then you would really need to truly establish this guy as the kingpin and make him like a known deal. You know what I mean?
But hasn't El Phantasma said the same thing, that he wanted to go heavyweight?
And he very well might go heavyweight. I mean, look at his frame. But I'm not saying that I'm counting on it, but I'm not discounting it at all. Like, it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, Desperado is one of my favorites to win the B block here and to win the whole tournament. Like you make great points, Josh. I think there's going to be a lot of push behind him in this tournament to help get him over as a star, to kind of help take over that burden that Hiromu has had and being the main guy pushing this division. So I think we're going to see the Desperado stock be increased here with several big wins and being alive towards the final night. And the last night, he's facing the next guy we're going to talk about, El Phantasmo. So both of those guys are top guys in this block. I definitely that screams block decision to me. I think whoever wins that match could potentially win the whole block. So I definitely think Despy will be alive in the final night. And like we talked about, him versus Doki is definitely a must-see match from this tournament. him and Teton should be pretty fun. Him and Wheeler Utah should be another good one. So lots of great matches for Despy here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Phantasmo, considering the fact that Phantasmo beat him with the sudden death last year to eliminate him from the tournament finals, that's going to kind of be an ongoing story going into the finals this year. I'm telling you right now, I think very strongly, and I could be wrong, but I think that my final predictions, Show and Yo is going to be the match determiner for the A block, and I think Desperado and ELP will be the determiner for B block.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about ELP, El Phantasmo's his third entry, second consecutive. How are we feeling about the headbanger?
I already kind of gave him his flowers earlier. I think he's someone that's kind of grown on me and has, he's always been athletically gifted, but as far as an entertaining performer and someone who's also kind of more acclimated to the rudimentary basics of Japanese pro wrestling, I think he's also improved in those aspects as well. He's a guy that I think is a more well-rounded, all-around performer than the guy that we saw come into this tournament a few years ago. And I think he's a heavy favorite. There's no other way to put it, especially considering we've seen certain individuals who were willing to get on the plane, come in, do the quarantines, spend time in holidays and yada, yada away from their family. He's one of those guys who has done that time and time and time again. Don't be surprised if he ends up winning the tournament and kind of gets that attaboy, here you go. This is probably coming his way anyways. It might be the year.
After seeing him win the Super J Cup a few years back and seeing him win it again after that, and I think again after that, I have no interest in him winning a Super Junior. But I just know how obnoxious he's going to be once he wins the Super Junior. But it's also one of those things. It all depends if they're going to willingly set up him versus Ishimori for the championship. Right. And do you have him win the Super Junior only to lose to Ishimori, or do you make Ishimori a transitional champion and have him lose to ELP, probably not clean?
Yeah,
I don't think with Ishimori being champion, it's the year for him.
Yeah.
If someone else were champion, probably a baby face, maybe it could be Phantasmo's year. I just don't know if they're gonna willingly try to implode the only junior tag team that Bullet Club has at this point, because they're the only one they have. Because Chris Bay doesn't have a partner, Show doesn't have a partner.
Right, I totally agree with you. That's the one thing that's hurting ELP's chances of winning here, is the fact that Ishimori is the junior champ. I mean, if that match did happen, and maybe you could do an angle where Ishimori gets kicked out of Bullet Club. Jay White has said that there are more people that could potentially be booted out of the group, and maybe for whatever reason he boots Ishimori out, and we get a babyface Ishimori going forward. But yeah,
yes, please. Sorry, that's personal preference.
But I don't know if that's the direction they're going to go in. So I do think Ishimori being a champ hurts ELP chances, but he is facing Despy on the last night, so I do think he'll be alive towards the final night. Again, he's a guy that's probably going to go 6-3 and end up with 12 points. And there's a lot of fun matchups here for him as well in this tournament. I think him and Wheeler Utah could be a lot of fun. And we also talked about earlier him and Robbie Eagles. So looking at go ahead.
Him versus TJP could be interesting.
Yeah, two heels there. That could be a fun
especially
matchup.
if TJ tries to ground him.
Yeah, TJ will probably do that, try to work the legs and keep him from flying. So our next guy here, Teton, his third entry, first in 3 years. Like we mentioned, he is the CMLL World Welterweight Champion. So it's been a little while since we've seen Teton. How are you guys feeling about him?
Teton, he's a guy that comes in. He has good matches. He's usually middle of the card. He goes 50-50 most times. Does a lot of great high flying, but even beyond just his high flying, he really is a really competent grappler as well, so he sort of has that aspect to his game where some luchadors maybe aren't as well rounded. But that's about it. He's there to pick up wins, pick up losses, and kind of round out the field and entertain with bringing the lucha style to the tournament, basically.
What I think it also is, I think it's a fair bit of goodwill because they haven't been able to send anyone to CMLL since Watto came back from excursion early due to the pandemic. I know a lot of people were expecting and hoping beyond hope that it was going to be Dragon Lee and Volador Jr. as well. But so it's
Mascara Dorada.
Caristico, I think, is Dragon Lee's brother.
Well, Caristico is the original. That's the original Mystico.
Well,
okay.
Well, Dragon Lee's brother had taken over. He was Caristico too, but then he left CMLL along with Dragon Lee, so now he's Dralistico.
I see.
I thought he was Mystico too.
Whatever, but like the expectation was that if CMLL was going to send a contingent, it would have been more than one person. So I like that there's somebody there, but it is surprising that there were not as many participants from the Mexican wrestling scene as many would have hoped for. I like Titan. I've got no problem with Titan. I enjoy watching him work. I find him, not to say that he's safer than, say, Dragon Lee or Volador Jr., but he takes less like crazy dives into the audience risks compared to them. So in a COVID capacity crowd, he's probably the best fit for it. But I always enjoy watching him wrestle. I like his masks and everything else. So
yeah, and he's a guy.
I'm just glad to see CMLL back and into the fold because people were worried that even though they were sending out the PR statements that yes, New Japan and CMLL are renewing the relationship, we weren't seeing any of it because they weren't sending anyone to Strong. They weren't sending anyone to Japan. They weren't sending anyone from Japan. Like even when they dispatched Uemura and Tsuji on an excursion, Tsuji wanted to go to CMLL and they sent him to England instead. So it's kind of like it feels like they're finally like not repairing the bridge, but reopening that avenue to one of their other partners.
Right, and he's a guy who can eat losses. If you brought in a guy like Dragon Lee or Volador, they're probably gonna have to push pretty hard. But Teton's a guy we've seen in the past. He usually gets 6 to 8 points, so he's a guy.
But he's usually not champion when he does it, though. That's the thing.
True, but again, like we mentioned, I don't think CMLL doesn't value that World Welterweight title, and I don't know how much the New Japan's going to value it as well. So I think he's going to do well. He's probably going to get 6 to 8 points, but he's going to eat a lot of losses. He's going to have some good matches, but he's definitely not going to be alive towards final night.
So I did look, and he's had 21 singles matches from 2019 to 2022. He's eaten 3 losses. So he is a guy that is pretty protected, but I think that's always sort of been the case with him anyways, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to these tournaments, he usually, like you mentioned, Jeremy, he usually finishes a little bit above 500. So I'm not going to be surprised if that's where he, winds up. One other thing, just to end all the confusion, Caristico is now Mystico.
The original Caristico.
No, the original Mystico is now again Mystico.
Okay.
He is the official Mystico.
He's gone full Mystico.
He's gone through a full cycle. So he is no longer known by the names Mistezes or Caristico or Sin Cara. He is just flat out Mystico.
Okay. So Dralistico is formerly Caristico.
I don't know who the fuck Dralistico even is.
I want to say he's Dragon Lee's brother because they're tagging together as a tag now.
Right.
But now they're doing it in triple
too.
Right, he's
they're doing
Mystico
it
too.
in triple A as opposed to CMLL.
Right, because they're facing the Hardys. The Hardys are facing Dragon Lee and Dralistico.
He was Mystico too, and then he changed to Dralistico.
Right, because
Dragon
Lee and Dralistico, they're no longer with CMLL. They left, and
correct.
CMLL also owns the right to the Caristico and Mystico character, so he had to become Dralistico.
Got it.
April 29th, 2022, at the anniversary show, Mystico defeated Titan in the Campeón Universal del CMLL 2022 final. So that was Teton's last match. He lost to the original Mystico at the end of their Universal title tournament that they do every year.
Gotcha.
Got it.
So next up, we're going to look at TJP. It's his second entry, first in 11 years.
Fantastic wrestler, awful human being, keeps good company, puts super smart stuff out there on the internet, I'm surprised he's even allowed in the country, to be honest, because I don't just peeling the curtains back, obviously I trained a bit in wrestling, so I have a few friends who are in the industry, and when they were given those open calls for the LA dojo tryouts and different stuff to go to Folly's dojo in Japan, they required full vaccination plus boosters for all of that. And I was like, how the fuck is TJP working? So either he compromised his values, which I judge him for that, and went full bore and got all the vaccines and is talking out the side of his mouth, or they've given him the pass. I don't know which one's which, but he's here. He's ready to rock. I don't see him as the primary guy in United Empire because he eats so many pinfalls within the group. So I'm assuming he's kind of going to be Bushi to Akira's Hiromu. And he'll have great matches because he is a great wrestler.
I just want, again, it always comes back to him being original LA Dojo and being a long-term member of the company. I mean, I could see him finishing around the middle of the block. He's another one that could, like Taguchi and Kanamaros, play spoiler for matches that matter, or to, ensure that certain people don't advance too high up the card or to the finals. He's another one I could easily see if he were to pin Yuta to go for the pure championship. The most fascinating matchup for him in all of this, I think Desperado could make him work a little harder.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, because there's the one should always learn from their opponents and take something home every time they face someone. I just don't know if any of
that's not true. TJP said on record that he has never learned anything from anyone that he has ever wrestled ever in his career. He's always been better than everybody he's ever wrestled. So
I'd like to talk to Jushin Thunder Liger, please.
He didn't gain anything from wrestling him.
Exactly. So my thing is that I'm hoping that this trip can serve as a learning experience for him. Because I think, while he is seeing some success in the United Empire, they've been waiting for him to come over. But if he's not going to be a constant force in the group in Japan, then he needs to leave some indelible mark on the tournament so people start watching what he does more in the States, because I don't think they're doing that just yet.
I will say this, TJP versus Wheeler Yuta will be the grappling match of the tournament. The two highest level grapplers, not named Sho, but Sho doesn't really have the dance partner on his side. Plus, he's not doing that so much these days.
I miss that.
Yeah. Wheeler Yuta versus TJP is probably going to rock.
Yeah, and it's going to be a match to look out for because it's on the last night of block action. And
I didn't even know that.
And Utah, I think we're going to talk about him in a second. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be alive towards the end. So either TJP is going to be alive towards the end, or like you mentioned, Karen, TJP is going to play spoiler potentially to Wheeler Utah. But yeah, that with both of those guys being great technical wrestlers, that's going to be an awesome grapple fest for that matchup. So let's talk about Wheeler Utah of the Blackpool Combat Club, representing AEW. This is his debut entry. He is the Ring of Honor Pure Champion.
I guess it goes to me since Josh just walked off. I am so thrilled and excited for Yuta to be in this tournament. I don't remember where I saw the interview or not, but it seemed like a few years back he actually went through all Japan at some point on a tour. So it's kind of cool to see him coming into New Japan, being part of New Japan Strong. His match back in August against Jay White at the New Japan Strong tapings after Resurgence was unbelievable. I love how much he's evolved since then,
Mm-hmm.
going through Strong and into AEW and working with Blackpool Combat Club. I think he's important for representation purposes because he's of mixed heritage. I believe he is half Japanese descent, which is kind of something that is, while there is a lot of diversity in New Japan, they don't have that somebody that's of mixed Japanese heritage on their roster. And I think that is an interesting thing that he brings to the table. Him versus TJP is going to be outstanding. And I am glad that it is on the last night of the block fighting. I want to see him versus Desperado and him versus El Lindaman as well. I think those are going to be two outstanding matches for him as well.
Yeah, I think Utah's going to have a lot of great matches. I'm excited to see him pretty much wrestle everybody in this block. I think he's going to be one of the standout guys, especially, coming off the push he's been getting in AEW. I think he's built a lot of confidence. He has a lot of momentum. And I think he's going to want to really, turn some heads in this tournament. So I'm expecting really good things for him. I expect him to get a similar push, like I think of him kind of like Moxley was when Moxley came in and being a part of AEW. Moxley had that strong stretch, went 6 wins and then lost the final 30. I could see Utah very similar, winning a lot of stuff in the very beginning and then kind of falling apart towards the end. I could see TJP, like him going in with 12 and then he loses to TJP at the end and ends with 12 points. I think he's going to have a winning record, and I think he's going to look really well in this tournament.
Yeah, I think Wheeler Yuta is one of the most interesting inclusions in this tournament because, with AEW sending somebody over, there's plenty of guys that fit the junior requirements that could have come over and, been in maybe a less protected position and could have eaten some, like for instance, Dante Martin, for example, comes directly to mind as someone who could have used the experience, but also facilitated that role where they eat pinfalls and kind of gain, a measure of exposure and kind of come out of here hotter than they came in. Wheeler Yuta is an interesting guy where he's being pushed to the moon in AEW. He's coming in with the ROH title. And so from a political standpoint, it's very interesting to kind of consider all the first-time matchups, but also how he's going to be treated within the booking. But aside from that, my personal opinion is that I'm not totally sure that, even though I think that Wheeler Yuta is an extremely talented performer, I think he's a technician, I haven't come around to the point where I think he's deserving of the push that he's been given within that company. And this tournament is going to be a real test that kind of separates the men from the boys and lets you know, like, who's got the juice and who doesn't, who's hot and who's not. And if, who knows what kind of implications this could have long-term for a guy that AEW's booking committee is so, behind. If he has, like, let's say a lackluster Super Juniors, what is that going to do for his storyline moving forward? So I think there's a lot to kind of consider there, but we'll also kind of get a little bit of a taste of what the like I said, the politics between AEW, New Japan, having their guys included in New Japan's tournaments, what that even looks like, what that's going to entail, because a lot of people are assuming that when the G1 opens up, there's a high possibility that we might have some AEW participants, and this might set some precedents. And I don't know what to expect, but I'm looking forward to it. Not too many matches of his that I really care to see, to be honest with you. Like I said, El Lindaman's the outsider that I'm way more jazzed for, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
I think what Yuta has working in his favor is that he's also been working New Japan Strong prior to him getting signed to AEW. So it's not just an AEW political insertion, is that he's like many of the other, well, most of the other people included, either have some prior New Japan or New Japan Strong experience. Of the people that are in AEW, for me, Yuta was the only one that really made sense because of him being a consistent name in the brand since last year. Like, when I think of people from AEW, I couldn't really think of any, like Dante Martin. Again, I'm a newer fan, or not fan. I don't even know if I consider myself a fan yet, but a newer watcher, casual, if you will, of AEW. And like not saying that they don't have the talent. I just don't think they're Super Junior ready just yet. Yuta, while he's still, maybe not the most like awe-inspiring to some people just yet, I think he's being part of Blackpool Combat Club and gaining more and more experience through New Japan Strong, which is by and large an open weight show. Like, they don't really talk about the division between juniors and heavyweights. Narita fights open weight over there. Uemura fights open weight over there. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I think this could be a good way to showcase Yuta and start giving him momentum where he's not, it's great that he's in BCC, but he's also standing in the shadows of Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson, and William Regal. And I think this Super Junior also sets up a good precedent and realistic expectations of what you can expect for representation of other companies in G1s moving forward. Right. You're not going to get 8 people from AEW in it. You're going to get a mix of people that could be from Impact, CMLL, Ring of Honor, which is kind of AEW, but not AEW, and other places.
Yeah, and we had a question here from Fit Beautiful 2638. What is your point total prediction for Wheeler Yuta in Best Super Junior? I see people calling for him to lose the block only on tiebreakers, but given how low card he has been booked on Strong, I feel like 6 or 8 points makes more sense.
Yeah, I understand that reasoning and everything, and you know what? That's not an impossibility. It really depends on what the philosophy of Tony Khan is going into this. There could be that philosophy that, like, hey, they're on a different continent altogether in an entirely different promotion that's being seen by a very small percentage of the fan base. What do I care how this guy is booked from a points total? Because when he comes back, that's not going to be factored into our stories. It's not going to be acknowledged on our television. It's not going to change the receptions he's getting, in our arenas. This is just a learning experience. But my hunch is that that's not the case, because he doesn't let his guys lose in GCW. He doesn't let them lose on any indies, hardly at all. He's hyper protective. And the last Windy City Riot show, everybody that was AEW affiliated won their matches. So if history tells us anything, he's pretty protective. My guess is that the assumption that he's only going to not win the block based off of tiebreakers, my hunch is that that's probably an accurate assumption, and that's what I'm thinking as well. I think he's going to end with like 12 points.
Yeah, I think his stock completely elevated with this whole Blackpool Combat Club push. If we were talking about Utah last year, pre-AEW, just strong Utah, then I could say definitely, yeah, maybe 8 points. But with this push, the match he had with Mox, the match he had with Bryan, he's been doing incredible work in AEW. They strapped a rocket onto him. He's on Dynamite every week in these fun 6-mans with Mox and Bryan. So his stock's elevated. He's a top star. He's also the Ring of Honor pure champion. So I think he's going to be protected. And yeah, like I said, I think he's going to get 12 points.
I think he's going to get 10. And I also think Tony Khan needs to start returning the favor when New Japan talent is on his TV programming, because I feel like Tony's talent gets protected more in New Japan, but it's not reciprocal, which is also something I could see being a point of contention going towards Forbidden Door.
Right.
Yeah, that whole thing is going to be really interesting.
It's going to be New Japan versus Noah versus All Japan levels of politics.
Yeah. So the last person here, somebody that we're very excited about in his first Super Juniors, El Lindaman representing Strong Hearts and Glate. He is Glate's G-Rex champion.
Yeah, so I mean, the inclusion of the guys from Glade, the Strong Hearts, just in general, has been a welcome surprise all throughout the year. And I think Lindemann has been the one guy that's been the least highlighted of the group so far, but in many ways has maybe the most upside of anybody in that group moving forward as far as like bright futures. He's the youngest, to my understanding. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I'm a big fan of his, and it's just going to be very interesting. All these first-time matchups with him, and then the fact that he is coming in as the G-Rex champion. Now, there is a possibility he could drop that title just prior to coming into the tournament, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Then again, he isn't very long into that title reign at all, so there's that aspect as well. But yeah, the politics at play in this B block are very interesting because of how many champions are there and outsiders. But yeah, he's probably my pick for standout guy in the B block as far as just like turning heads, turning attention to him. If you've been watching him, whether it be in Dragon Gate or, All Japan or, all the different places that they've been over the past, several years, OWE, AEW, you kind of already have a taste or a knowledge of it, but I'm sure there's a large portion of the fan base that just hasn't seen that much Lindemann and are probably not as aware of who he is and what he's capable of. But there's a reason that they picked him as the inaugural champion of GLEAT. So I'm definitely looking forward to him.
I'm excited for him as well. I mean, I think Josh covered everything that I could possibly say about Lindemann, other than he's got a great tan and he's very strong and sturdy. And I think he's going to have great matches. Like, I'm fairly confident he will pull a great match out of everybody, including Master Wato. So I'm very excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, Lindemann's not going to have a bad match. He's going to be potentially the MVP of this block. He's going to have bangers over everybody. I'm really excited to see him. I've seen a lot of his work based off of stuff in AEW, some of the clips, like you mentioned, Josh, OWE, and just some of the stuff that he's done in GLEAT. This guy's freaky strong, super fast. He's going to have a lot of fun matchups in this tournament. And again, with the politics and the booking, and to kind of jump to a question a little bit down here from Rainbow and Slam Pig, how do you see interpromotional politics affecting the booking of this year's Best of Super Juniors? It's going to be tough. I think he's a guy who could potentially end up with maybe 8 points. There's a lot of guys in this block that need to be protected.
My thing is that I worry that with all of these champions and being brought in and the potential need to protect all of them, it's going to come at the cost of New Japan's own roster, where they end up sabotaging the entire purpose of elevating the New Japan roster by bringing in all of these other talents, which is, I mean, I love seeing fresh matchups, but at the same time, you have to book it in a sense and in a way where your own talent aren't made to look like clowns in their own house. And that's what I worry about when you bring in all of these decorated. I mean, it's great. You have a showcase of champions, but at the same time, are you going to ensure that the people that you've put through your own dojo system and you invested your own money in, what are you doing to protect them? Or are you willing to take a sustainable loss on your own talent for the sake of just having other people's people come in? You know what I mean? Like, I worry about the power dynamic and the balance, which is why I'm also not confident that certain people could win this year, just because of all the people that need to be protected in this tournament when they don't necessarily need to be, because they are guests in New Japan's house.
I'm not too worried about it. I mean, we've seen a lot of tournaments that have gone parity just across the board, even when it's entirely in-house with New Japan. And many of the guys that are involved on the New Japan side would have got booked, pretty low anyways, regardless. It's wrestling. It's a round robin tournament. There's guys that are going to lose that are not going to, there's there's 2 blocks and there's only 2 guys that can go to the finals, and everyone else is going to get, different measures of success. But very rarely in this tournament is there anybody that goes winless or just completely gets buried. And there's never any, aside from Shingo, there's nobody that goes completely undefeated coming out of a block. So I expect on both sides for there to be a pretty high level of parity, just given the field. That's a given. And, don't be surprised if there's a lot of like wins and losses that you don't see coming. Keep that in mind when you're doing your brackets this year.
Yeah, well, that's going to wrap up our talk on the B block. Has some other questions here on the tournament. First, Les Commission 7252. From all 20 juniors, who do you guys think will benefit the most in this tournament?
Short answer, whoever wins the tournament. I couldn't tell you. I think he's asking like who's going to probably take the biggest step forward and really make a name for themselves. And I'm not sure, but I'm guessing whoever gets that push to win the tournament, that's going to be your guy.
What do you think, Karen?
Yeah. It's going to be one of those things where if they're willing to take a chance on someone new instead of relying on old reliables like they usually do.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of guys that are working really hard. Obviously, the winner is probably going to be the guy that benefits the most. But, I mean, I think a guy like El Lindemann, who's in a smaller promotion like Galate, can really shine and potentially
bring a lot of eyes to them. Yeah.
Or even get a New Japan deal and jump from Galate to New Japan.
If that's what we're needing to answer, who's going to turn the most heads towards them and make the biggest name for themselves, I'll just say Akira. Akira is going to be the guy that really like takes the step out. People are going to be like, huh, I didn't fucking know he was that awesome. And he is.
Yeah. They also asked any update on the Best Super Junior Pick'ems contest for you guys or from anybody else. Still thinking about it because it's it's really tricky keeping up with the results of these block tournaments. There's not like an automatic way to do it, but I'll let you guys know in enough time if we're going to do one or not. Next question from Fit Beautiful 2638. Given your comments on New Japan's junior division last week, did NJPW miss the boat on Ninja Mac, or do you think he's too flippy to fit in NJPW? Sounds like Ninja Mac went viral in Japan after just a few Noah appearances, and he's never gotten a shot on Strong.
Yeah, I mean Ninja Mac's phenomenal when it comes to the aerial stuff. I mean, he's like a once in a lifetime type of guy. Like he's right up there with your Ricochets and your Will Ospreys and guys that can do that. But at the same time, I mean, he's kind of small. I don't know. Aside from the flips, I've never been that impressed with him. And, I can tell you he's trained with people that I know. And, there are some things he doesn't excel at necessarily. But, who knows? Maybe he will come work for New Japan at some point. I don't know.
My first experience watching him wrestle was actually on Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and it was such a mismatch compared to what Bloodsport usually is that I was not really sold on him, to be honest. I did watch the shows in Noah last week where he was there. I don't know if he's not necessarily my cup of tea or not. But is he too flippy to fit in New Japan? I need him to have more substance than just a flashy flip here and there. Honestly, I think Noah might be the better fit for him because they don't have very many foreign wrestlers. And now that he's contracted there, that's probably a good place for him to become better acquainted with how Japan's wrestling scene is. Maybe in the future, it could lead to something in New Japan. I just don't necessarily think he's the best fit for New Japan. And that's okay.
I love Ninja Mac. We saw him Mania weekend here in Tampa at that midnight show, part of the Collective. This man was out here flipping in the middle of Ybor City. He was awesome. And every time I've seen him, I've just been impressed with a lot of the flips he does. I do agree that obviously his, technical wrestling and the grappling stuff probably needs more work, but I think he's a phenomenal high flyer. And like you said, Karen, I think Noah's a great place for him to improve, get better, learn how Japan works, and then down the line, I mean, he's still pretty young. I could see him in the Super Juniors in the future. MJSPR says, what outsider is going to have the strongest run in the tournament?
Strongest run? I don't know what he means by that. I don't know if he means like in terms of booking or in terms of like performance. I'm going to interpret that just to mean by booking. And my anticipation is that it's going to be Wheeler Yuta.
I agree.
Okay, so outsiders, I guess he's meaning non-New Japan strong guys. So just like Teton, Wheeler Yuta, El Lindemann,
Ace Austin.
And Ace Austin?
Yeah.
It's going to either be Yuta or El Lindemann, one of the two, if not both.
He also asks, who will end up with more wins, Doki or Master Wato?
Master Wato.
They're going to be tied.
They could be tied, yeah.
I think they're going to be tied. So Doki has been winning one additional match each year. So he's up to 3 wins now in a Super Junior. So I think...
But there's also no Young Lions this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see both of them being tied at 6 this year. Rainbow Slam Pigs asks, how does Special Super Junior returning to May impact your feelings about the tournament? I will admit I'm a lot more excited. How does the change impact the likely booking, if at all?
I've got a lot of stuff going on in the month of May. My birthday is coming up literally when this tournament starts. I'm studying for, my licensing, and it just doesn't really fit. This could go back to December, which is a much more chill time. December is not, a stressful time for anybody. Nothing goes on in December, so
I'd like to apologize in advance for the poor scheduling of Best of the Super Joshuas. We did not realize that Joshua would be this busy in the month of May. I too have the day after the opening night is the upper division orientation for the 3rd and 4th year medical students where I work, and graduation all in the same week. So I'm going to be dead on my feet the first week of Super Junior. But the fact that it is not woven into World Tag League or overshadowed by Power Struggle or Super Junior League or anything else, it's back where it belongs. It feels like a step back into returning to quote unquote normal.
Yeah.
It feels like it's back where it needs to be. It needs to be between, on the calendar between use your words, New Japan Cup and the G1. And it feels good because it's giving the heavyweights a break, meaning when the G1 rolls around in August again, the juniors get time off. And I think that's what's been hardest about the way the schedules have been built is that nobody's had any time off. Like literally you have to be injured and on the shelf to have some semblance of a more than 2 days off at a time. So I'm glad it's back. I'm excited. I'm just going to be team no sleep for the next month.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped that it's back in the normal time slot. Nature is healing. We're getting back to a regular schedule here with New Japan. So this should be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm all down for it. So we have 2 Super Junior shows that will happen before the next time we record. Like I mentioned.
In the essence of time, I say we don't even run through these lineups. If you want to check them out next week. Let's just announce what nights we're covering and then move on.
Yeah, so we'll cover night 1 and night 2. So the first night of the A block, first night of the B block, May 15th and May 17th. Like we mentioned earlier, New Japan Strong. They'll be doing Mutiny on Friday with Jay White, Verticoleo, Fred Rosser in the handicap match against the West Coast Wrecking Crew, and Rocky Romero, Adrian Quest, and Alex Coughlin against Jared Crales, Black Tiger, and Danny Limelight. There was an episode of Strong this past Saturday, which was the Lone Star Shootout. We had Chris Bay and Hikuleo defeating the Stray Dog Army, Jonah defeating Blake Christian, and then Kratos, Isaacs, and Lawler defeating Coughlin, Fred Rosser, and the DKC. Then after Capital Collision, there'll be a Collision Strong taping in Philadelphia on Sunday with Will Ospreay versus Homicide, Suzuki versus Tony Deppen, Tanahashi versus Chris Dickinson, Coughlin, Kevin Maybe, yeah, he might get replaced. Coughlin, Kevin Knight, and DKC versus Kratos, Nelson, and Isaacs, Killer Cross versus Yumura, David Finlay versus Danny Limelight, QT Marshall versus Carl Fredericks, Brody King versus Jake Something, Jeff Cobb versus Willie Mack, Great O'Con, Aaron Hanare, Kyle Fletcher, Mark Davis versus Jonah, Badu Tito, Shane Hayes, and Michael Nichols. So a rematch from Capital Collision. And then we'll get Ishii, Rocky Romero, Mascara Dorada, Renarita, and Chuck Taylor versus Jay White, Juice Robinson, Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, and Hikuleo. And then Delirious, the former ROH Booker, will be taking on Arya Davari.
Wow.
And just to run through these news here, the Ibushi tweets, we've seen them. We're not really going to speculate or talk more about them right now until we can get some more concrete information on what's going on with that situation.
I will tell you, Jeremy, while we're on the air, we won't get into it here. There was a pretty in-depth news report that came out. We'll take a look at it. We don't know very much just yet. I know a lot of people wanted us to spend time talking about this, but we literally don't know much yet, so we're not gonna.
Yeah. We'll talk about it when we get some more info. Forbidden Door tickets, they sold out in like 30 minutes last week, so very hot ticket. Everybody's looking forward to the big New Japan AEW crossover show.
Tony Khan bought those so he could sell them. How does that work? I don't know. He did it, though.
Windy City Riot's going to be on Access TV this Thursday. They're going to air Moxley versus Ospreay and Ishii versus Suzuki. So if you haven't seen those matches yet, you definitely want to check out Access TV, watch those matches. From The Observer, New Japan has booked September 16th to the 18th at a gym at the University of Texas at Arlington. They have 3 days on hold, but the date for the show right now looks to be 9/18, so I'm not sure if that's going to be a strong taping or another pay-per-view. Free match of the week is Will Ospreay versus Ricochet, Best of Super Junior 2016. Will Ospreay will be facing Nick Wayne June 19th at GCW. I Never Liked You.
Hey, GCW, come up with your own names of your events. Stop stealing from hip-hop rap
titles, yeah.
Yeah.
The Cork and Hall 60th anniversary show is up on NJPW World. If you haven't seen that, check that out. This past weekend, Josh Alexander defended the Impact title against Ishii at Under Siege, and what I heard was a great matchup. We also had Taka Taichi Mania 2.5 this past weekend with Suzuki defeating Ren Ayabe, Taka Michinoku and Kanamaros defeating Dick Togo and Gato, Taichi defeating Yoshitatsu, and then in a wild death match main event, we had Jun Kasai and Tomioka Hanuma defeating Doki and El Sporado. Coming up May 12th at 6 a.m. Eastern live.
Wait a second. I got a quick question. Why is it Taka Taichi Mania 2.5 when they already had 3?
I don't know. That's what it was labeled on Cage Match. And
no, I know it is. It just doesn't make sense to me.
I want to say it had something to do about Desperado's injury with the last time he fought Jun Kasai or some weird.
It's just so weird. They already did the 3rd one, and now they're regressing in the pattern and the order.
Yeah.
Coming up on May 12th at 6 a.m. live from Cork and Hall. They're going to be doing the Tatsumi Fujinami 50th anniversary, the Never Give Up tour, Phase in Tokyo, Dear New Generation, featuring Hiroshi Tanahashi, Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, and Yuji Nagata. This is a part tradition, so big anniversary show for Fujinami.
And Fujinami had to pull out of that show, and Tanahashi had to step in to replace him for that show.
Yeah, so
That's what I saw anyways.
I haven't seen any matchups announced for that just yet. I'm sure they'll come out at some point, but hopefully it'll be up on New Japan World. Actually, it's on New Japan. It's going to be a pay-per-view, I think, on New Japan World. In the last bit of news here, All Japan, New Japan are going to be joining up for the 23rd anniversary of the death of Jumbo Tsuruta for a show on May 31st at Korakuen Hall. That's it for the news. Going to skip over these off-topic questions here and quickly finish up here with recommended match of the week and excursion match of the week.
Yeah, when we skip over questions, do we end up like going back to them?
So we've skipped questions like the last 3 weeks now, but I've been leaving them on there. Hopefully we'll have some time to get to them next week.
We will. You and I believe in it. We can do it.
So real quick here, last week, recommended match of the week, Josh, you picked Wild Pegasus vs. Black Tiger 2 from June 11th, 1996. Watch this match this weekend. Awesome matchup. Wild Pegasus really ate up Black Tiger, I felt, in this match a lot, and it was a really all Wild Pegasus, but really fun matchup from early in the career of Wild Pegasus and Black Tiger.
I rewatched this. It reminded me a lot in the first 2/3 of the match. It reminded me a lot of like the early Fujinami Riki Choshu matches, the way it was laid out. But then the last third where they started going into like all the like near falls kind of reminded me of like Taker Michaels from like WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Just like big move, kick out, big move, kick out. And like I kept thinking the match was going to be done. And then did you notice at the very end, they teased that top rope tombstone from the Super Juniors we reviewed a few years before?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like this. You know what? While I was watching it, I wasn't sure if I was digging it, and then by the end of it, I was like, all right.
Dude, I felt
they killed it.
I felt the same way. I felt like it started off kind of slow, but yeah, they really picked up towards the end. And then I picked for the excursion match of the week, Will Ospreay versus Blake Christian from Warrior Wrestling.
Yeah, I watched this match, guys. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way and watch this. It not only was a great match, but it also really kind of changed. Not that I've ever had a bad opinion of Blake Christian, but like this felt like someone who is wrestling up to a new level, essentially. Just blow away. I mean, this is an easy excursion match of the year contender. I think I'm like 4.5 on it. I liked this even better than Ospreay and Cage's match from earlier in the year from Warrior Wrestling. Yeah, I mean, you know, say what you will about the guy, but like no one else is outperforming Will Ospreay match by match over the course of this year. Like he is the wrestler of the year right now. I don't care what anyone says. Like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I watched the match this weekend. Also, awesome match. I also went 4.5 on it. Yeah, Ospreay's just putting out some great stuff, and like you mentioned, Blake Christian looked really great here as well.
Yeah, blow away. So, Jeremy, what do you have for the recommended match of the week for me this week?
So I have Dominion, June 21st, 2014, for the IWGP Junior Championship, Kota Ibushi versus Ricochet.
Nice. Be happy to check that out. And then my recommended match my excursion match of the week is the recent battle between Filthy Tom Lawler and Jon Moxley from Defy Wild Ones. That did air on Pluto TV. I think I sent a link to our group chat where you can find that video available for probably only a short period of time.
But yeah, I saw clips from that match. It was a bloody, crazy brawl. I heard this is Filthy Tom's best matchup. I think Meltzer went 4.5 on it. So definitely should be one to check out. Karen, thanks so much for joining us again for this big preview show. Please do your plugs to our listeners where they can find you online.
If you want to find me, you are welcome to swing by Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and YouTube at Hey Karen Sensei. I also do Stardom coverage for Post Wrestling, and I also have a weekly column with them called Dream Slam Weekly, where I cover all of the Joshi scene from throughout Japan and around the world.
Awesome. Yeah, make sure you check out Karen online, check out her work. And that's going to wrap up the show this week. Next week, we'll be back to review Capital Collision and the first 2 nights of Best of the Super Junior. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, on the Pro Black Guy, y'all just keeping it strong style. You can email me, jeremy@socialsuplex.com. And check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guide podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. The Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Moms, at Vanguard, you're more than just a parent. You're the heart of the family. You're the first responder to any need. You can be the hero and the villain, sometimes on the same day. Because you know that in the end, your legacy is the values you instill in them. At Vanguard, you're more than just an investor. You're an owner. Because the future you're building is bigger than yourself. Discover the value of ownership at Vanguard.com. Fund shareholders own the funds that own Vanguard. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor.